All right, so today is February 6, 2022, and this is our Western Desiderata meeting. And I guess this is take 2 of something with the machine and the cop. I will just preface it by saying there may have been some events in the Eastern meeting that may not be legal. And so what just wanted to let Hugh talk about it. Let's go for it.
Okay, we can kill 2 birds with 1 stone here, because the next thing on the agenda is why it's so difficult to record woo. Okay, so we just saw why. So we just so to let everybody know, we started the meeting, and this is the second go round. What you're seeing now, if you're watching this recording, is you're seeing the second go round. So what happened to the first go round? And that's why I gave a bit of woo, right? But the machine stopped me. And it stopped me by, so you see how difficult it was. Everybody that's on this meeting now has something in their brain that you who are watching this recording, you're not going to see. And I gave everybody that was listening here a bit of woo. I gave them the reason why you can't actually record it. But Mike, you want to just analyze what happened. So we didn't get that recording, because the reason why I'm answering this question about why you can't record woo, and believe me, I've tried. We must go into this in some depth. The reason why I'm going into it in such depth is it was asked by a question by a patron. So it's one of my patrons on Patreon that asked the question. So since he's a paying customer, I feel duty bound to give him a good answer. Yeah, we must go into it, but it's very demanding on me to explain why, because I have to give over the crown jewels almost. And it's difficult to record because it is woo. The answer itself is woo. So if we actually manage to complete this and get the explanation out and get it up to YouTube, that's quite an achievement against the machine. So the first thing, okay, let me just recreate what I kind of re-say what I just said in on the record. And so what Mike was asking is we in the earlier meeting today, in the Eastern meeting, we did a spell to bind Moloch, the machine. And so you just go and watch it and see it. During that, then Mike burnt a dollar bill, and so then Mike went off. He got a bit worried afterwards. The cop in his head came in, and said "Hey, isn't that illegal?" He goes and has a look, and sure enough, yeah, it is illegal to actually burn a currency. Okay, so now first off, I must warn everybody. What I'm going to tell you is I'm not licensed to be a lawyer. If you hear this, you're hearing just Hugh. I have no credentials to give you legal advice. Okay, and so so this is my interpretation of the law, and I studied law in the Kosi von Tute. Okay, I did not study it in the Ministry of Love. Okay, so this is my advice, and what I was trying to recreate what I was saying to Mike is that. If you went to court, it would be because you got down this fear cycle. So the very first fear thing is that you went and had a look and Googled, the law about burning currency. You will soon find a law against it. Okay, where did that law come from? It actually comes from your mind. It comes from the cop inside you. You're actually hallucinating and writing that page. Now, most people would say, oh, come on, the Indian programmers stuff, and say, like, look, I've been a programmer my whole life. You're creating the words with your mind as you read, right? It's based on your fear. It's just like in the Back to the Future movie, where you saw that's Michael J. Fox character, and he sees Professor Emmett Brown jailed, and then that's on the newspaper, and then he goes back, fixes things up, and then he goes and says, "Oh, yeah, the newspaper changes on him. Emmett Brown hailed." Remember that bit in the movie? So anyway, that's exactly what you're doing all the time. When you go back and edit a newspaper, like in Back to the Future, it's your left hemisphere. It's editing. It's editing the stream in the right hemisphere. So this is the cop, the critic, the lawyer, and it's editing all the stream that the right hemisphere sees. So I would say that the right hemisphere records everything in total. It is a complete record of your life from beginning to end. Now, the reason why I would say that is because of this video that I posted called Daniel Tammet. Is that his name? Tammet? Bennett. What's his name, Sophie?
I think it's Mesmet. I think.
Mesmet?
I
no,
think so.
Menet.
Anyway, you're talking about the Belgian guy. You're talking about the Belgian professor?
No, the savant. The English savant.
Sorry.
Daniel.
I'm mixing up. Sorry. I'm still under the spell.
Too much ether. Bad girl, bad. Okay, clear the air. Deep breaths. So, okay. So if this happens to you now, then I'm teaching you alchemy. So what happened to Sophie is she got too much ether from the previous spell. You burn the ether off, right, with oxygen, right? So this is, let me tell you what we did in the Air Force. Not me. I was never a jet jock. I was an air traffic controller. But the jet jocks, I would party with them all night, and then they would go on. Well, I would go on. I would be on duty, and they would get in a jet and go out and fly. But they were completely fucking drunk. Everybody's always said I drive better, I fly better when I'm drunk. So when I was always the designated driver whenever I stole my dad's car and took my friends out at like about 3 or 4 years before my legal age to drive, which is about 15. I would take all my friends, I would steal my dad's car, wait for him to go to sleep, sneak in, grab his keys, get the car, and then pick up all the girls, and then we'd go downtown to a bar, which you're only allowed into at 18, so we were like 3 years underage, and we would hustle our way in, bribe or whatever, and then have a big party thing. And when we came home, then they said, you drive a hell of a lot better when you're drunk than when you're sober. Okay, so so I'll tell you the trick to that one day, but now I'll tell you the simple trick from alchemy. When the pilots come out of the bar in the mess and get in the plane, right, a mirage, let's say. Very funny that it's called a mirage because of the subject, okay. But anyway, what they would do is they would taxi out, and it was long enough on the taxi that they'd go to full oxygen. So they would just put the O2 to 100%. And by the time they got lined up on the runway, they were absolutely sober. Why? Because they burnt up all the alcohol that they had in the bloodstream. Okay. So this is a very big secret to alchemy, because I showed you about the 5 elements this morning on this Eastern meeting. And this is the secret, is to burn up the alcohol, you just have oxygen. So you need just plenty of O2, and you can burn up any amount of oxygen, right? And convert it to energy, by the way. So I hope I'm giving you the lesson of why in the school that I was in, they say, like, in good company, you can never get drunk. And we used to drink a lot, and no one would ever get drunk. And the reason is that the senior people, or the most senior person at the table, the head of the table, the job of the person at the head of a table in a formal dinner, it happened in the Air Force as well, in the mess. They would teach you how to do a formal dinner. And it's all a big ritual. It's very like a death ritual. It's well worth going into. You could find all the secrets of the Freemasons virtually in the, or at least the tauroctomy, you can find in an officer's formal dinner that any officer in any military around the world, especially one that's been one associated with the Commonwealth. So the actual thing is that the compier, the guy who's regulating this whole thing, the whole formal dinner, he's very careful to balance all the 5 elements in terms of alchemy, and to make sure that, like, you know, so it's to keep everything regulated so that the food doesn't overwhelm the alcohol and people don't get rowdy, and so it's all very carefully timed. It's basically doing what I just did on the call for a room full of people. So then if things start to quieten down and stuff, then he'll like add the right thing, you know, lights up music, more alcohol. And that's the way that you have one of these banquets. Everybody comes out balanced in the end, and they feel fantastically good, as opposed to if you just go to a party with your friends without any knowledge, then you'll come out feeling dreadful. You know, you find out, like, you know, we used to say the ship fairies came and shat in my mouth and stole my wallet, because that's a bad party scene, and it means that there's no control or regulation. So the COP is necessary to keep things regular, but the COP is necessary to build things up, and so then in the formal dinners and stuff that we had in the school I was in the cult, then we would say that, you know, like in the particular ones, I said this morning I'm going to start naming names, because I think that is enough ancient history that anybody that tries to track me down from there, probably it's a cold trail. So so I'm prepared to name names now. So in this place called Waterperry House, and we, you know, there's some of the really woo things that I can tell you. Some of them, a lot of them haven't. But we would say, you know, like that place would get so bright with those things. I mean, in talking in terms of just the luminescence, the actual physical lights, the fireplaces, the heat, the energy, it took a tremendous amount of money and wealth, right? Just, and I mean pie. So it means fuel for that. But, you know, we would joke that they'd say, like, man, this place is so lit that planes are, you know, will vector in on it from Heathrow. And then people would say, don't think that. It'll happen. There's another movie reference for you. So anyway, I'm just saying that this for the point of view of information energy, to tell you that if somebody has the knowledge, then they can regulate the flow of information, so you can reach liftoff. This is like the secret of the pyramids, I'm telling you. Okay, so all right, so let's go reel it back to a defense against the cop. So the cop had a little visit to Mike in his head afterwards and said, you know, is this illegal? So if you go and find out if something is legal or not, you'll find out it's just a quagmire, right? You'll see things go fractal on you. So if you say, yes, there's a definite law in bold that you're not allowed to burn currency, then loophole, 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 complication come in, and then now you need to be a computer programmer, because the law is set to program you. So they're trying to program you and regulate you. So it's, now, there's not some programmer out there behind the scenes, it's you. as you look at the law and read it, you just like Back to the Future and the newspaper headline, this part will edit this part to tell it what to see. So this part will see all these malapropisms, these substitutions, these puns. It's basically, it has not an infinite wall of information, but it's fractal, so it has all possibilities. And this will edit, give it salience. And the editor here, just like a movie editor, it will clip, and it can only edit like an editor can edit a movie. It can't actually insert more track than there actually is. It can actually go out, say, and insert another clip from another movie or something, and on demand. So if I say to you, think about the Back to the Future movie, do you remember that scene? Then this part can actually go out into your memory banks and pull that out, and then represent it through your right hemisphere. So your right hemisphere is really the camera, right? And everything it records, I would say pretty much all of your life is all recorded here from start to finish. It all goes in and it all stays down. It's all tracked. Then this gives it salience by saying, I'll take that meaning. You see, if you do a lot of punning, all the stuff that I do on Reddit, it's neuro-linguistic programming. I'm deliberately fudging your thing. So then I take something like tell me what democracy looks like. This is what democracy looks like. And I write, tell me what rebellion looks like. This is what rebellion looks like. And so I'm fucking with your brain by slowly substituting this. So what I'm doing is I'm editing. I'm defeating the editor. Now, we have a unified brain. So it basically is all of our brain is one brain. Okay, the idea that you have a brain and Sophie has a bit of jelly, I have a bit of jelly is true, but the way the brain works, it'll be complementary. These two hemispheres are complementary with each other, but they can also then be, you can say let's say left side complementary to right side. Then immediately, if Sophie says something, she becomes, right side. Then my whole brain, left and right, suddenly becomes right side or left side, as opposed to her right side. And that's how the dialogue goes. So you can do this at any level. You can do this with 5 people, and very important, the numbers. Very important to be a mathematician and know what's happening. So there's a good reason why there's a stable committee is 7 people. It's because of numerology and the fact that that's stable. If you think of if you go through the maths of what I've just done, if you're a mathematician, you reassemble what I've just said, you will see from combinatorics, oh, hang on, that works. I'll give you a shortcut into why it works. Why it's well known in business, like if you have something like the Dutch East India Company, what makes it so powerful is because the guys, they know numerology, they know Freemasonry, and so they know how big you can make an effective committee. They were, see, Extinction Rebellion doesn't have the knowledge. So then they say, oh, all of us must be in here. It must be a holocracy. So they're like, well, then it all falls apart. So then they have a secret, I can't remember what it's called, but Roger Hallam told me it was like they call it the core, the central, the brain, so something like that. I can't remember what he said, but they have a word for it, and it's just a bunch of secret guys that say, okay, all of these guys are just not getting their act together, so we have to manipulate them from behind the scenes, and so then they wind up in this kind of a board situation. So they effectively, Extinction Rebellion has a board, like any corporate company or anything like Shell that they're going up against. But they don't know all of the stuff that all these guys that are schooled properly in Freemasonry and the tough knocks colonial schools and stuff, is they will tell you that, that 7 is the stable number, that and you have a lot of reference points if you're given this, an elitist education. As soon as you would say to somebody that's had that education, you would say like, well, we're going to form a committee. How many people should we have in it? And they will quickly say, well, let's do what, say, the Dutch East India Company do. You know, they have that reference point. They're not struggling like, you know, the peasants. So so why 7? I'll give you a shortcut. Leibniz figured it out. It's basically, it's binary. So you can say, so what I just told you is that the brain's binary. It's binary here. If I talk to Sophie, if Sophie makes a comment, then she becomes 0, I become 1. And then if I say a comment from the left wing, it's 1. So Leibniz figured it out. Why 7? What's that? What's this? A trident, but these are 3 1s. What is it?
That's 7.
In what?
In binary? No.
Yes, that's it. So I've just given you the key, the key to why it works as stable. So that 7 is stable because it's based on binary 3. So effectively, they're 3 1s in the room. They do this even on a computer, say like in the space shuttle. They had to have, you know, each a computer that really would make decisions, or at least tell the crew, at least okay. In the space shuttle, they had 3 computers because they needed to calculate 3 things 3 times. Why? Because they thought, well, these, you know, cosmic particles are coming in and all of this shit. See, NASA didn't know that the space crew, the astronauts, they're programming that computer on the fly. They're programming it with their mind. NASA didn't know that. They thought you had to go and get programmers and they had to write COBOL and assembler and put it on an IBM machine and load it up. All complex stuff. And then they load it up on 3 machines. Then they each make a calculation. And then why 3? Because if there was what they thought was a cosmic bit, an ESP or bit flip, then they thought it would be in 1 machine and then the other 2 would override it. So that's what they were thinking. So they were doing Freemasonry. They were teaching themselves what any Freemason knows, but they did it the hard way by going to the moon. Now, one of the interesting things is when they got back from the moon, all those tapes are gone. All the pictures that we have now of 1 small step for man, 1 giant leap for mankind, all of that, you see, that, by the way, that was improv. If you actually look, that wasn't what Neil Armstrong was supposed to say. He actually, it was edited in his brain, so he made a faux pas. And that faux pas is much better than the original. So that is our consciousness reawakening. And that consciousness reawakening was Neil Armstrong and all the people in mission control and that. Then they had 1 new brain. Because he was saying, like, that's 1 small step for a man, 1 giant leap for mankind. And there was this brief spark of like, 1 man is all mankind. Oh my God. And it becomes famous. But everything else is edited out. They can't find all of the stuff in the thing. Now, all the conspiracy theories go and say, well, we never went to the moon and stuff like that. Well, no, we didn't. It was just a psychic journey. We just fooled ourselves into doing it. But those guys were on the moon. You know, it's like, if you want to look, if you want to be a cop and go and look, you can actually find that it was all done in a studio. Because you are creating that studio. Neil Armstrong really went to the moon and the sky. What it's hard for people to understand is the moon and the sky isn't it's not any more material than a movie. So you know, Ken Kesey and all of these guys in the further bus, they take a bit of acid, and then they would say like, "Hey man, you're in a shit movie." It's like, "Hey, leave him alone, dude." You know, or they would have this expression say, you know. So leave him alone, he's in his own movie. Or they'd have an expression that said that's like, "Hey man, it's your movie." See, they all knew from having an acid trip that we all have this own separate movie that is actually part of a bigger movie. one small movie for man, one giant movie for mankind. And that's what's going on. You see how I just edited what Neil Armstrong said? In effect, I've taken Neil Armstrong off the moon. And I've erased some tapes somewhere. Right? So that is pretty much the reason why you can't recall Wu. Okay, so now let's have a bath of cold water and just go back to saying, so now let's get hard bitten and say you believe in the science magic. Okay, the science magic is horseshit. It's just magicians that don't have very good powers, so they need to do tech to convince themselves that they have powers. It's basically people with Viagra. So it's tech Viagra. It's basically, if Jeff Bezos shaves his head anymore, he's going to fucking look like a dick. It's just like he's got a fucking cock rocket and he's turning himself into a dick. He's a living, walking shaft of phallus with this big fucking meat helmet on him. It's like, it's Jeff Bezos. This is getting fucking ridiculous, man. Stop this shit. So anyway, this that took me off track. But anyway, this is why these guys are like, they don't call them astronauts. The NASA would say, you're not astronauts. So why? Because that's not what we're doing here. You're just doing self-aggranding dick pics. It's like, Neil Armstrong did this for humanity. You did it for yourself. You're not an astronaut. You're just a jerk off. Go fucking milk yourself somewhere, Jeff Bezos. It's like, I did, here he's saying, I did 11 minutes in space. It's like, that's all you can last? Let me at your wife. I'll give her fucking half an hour. I don't think Jeff Bezos can actually do 11 more than 11 minutes. But anyway, he goes, oh, champagne, everybody. Thank you, all slaves. I boiled the fat of your hide and put it into a rocket so I could do 11 minutes. It's like, fucking hell, what a Casanova. You can only do 11 minutes on the fat of how many people work for Amazon? You roasted how many fucking slaves' ass to get 11 minutes in space. You're a cannibal and we're going to get you. The people are coming for you, Mr. Dickface. And they're coming for you because of videos like this. I'm not the only one making them. We're all working together with one mind. And you're outside that mind. You're the other. So basically, the pandemic is coming to get you. And we are the pandemic. They are scared of us. You see, the same goes for the virus, right? This pandemic is, they putting their fear into us. They're telling us, ooh, it's HIV. HIV, it's hive mind. It's us getting together. They're giving the fear of HIV into us, right? The fear of the corona, the crown. They're putting that into us. You say, like, we are projecting this on them, right? That's the way to look at it is we are projecting the pandemic on them. It's our pandemic, right? They are the ones. The machine is suffering a bug. And we're putting that bug in there with our left brains. It's editing the movie so that their movie is turning to shit and is about to terminate. And our movie goes on. Okay. So now, where does it go on to? It goes on to the flippening. It's about to be a big change. Anyway, now let's just completely reel this back in and say that, like, say you kind of did lose faith in yourself. So humanity is the self with an S. So what Neil Armstrong is saying, that's one force. You see, I just did a Freudian slip because I thought of Neil Armstrong falling when because in effect I've killed him now by one-upping the psychological content of what he did on the moon. So in my mind, I've killed him, and in your mind too, I've just killed Neil Armstrong because at least that moment, his peak moment, because I've just given you a substitute, a new one. That's one full step for man. So that's one full step for self, one giant leap for self. So here, what I'm saying there is self with a little s and self with a big S, which is actually the same thing as I've just told you with binary arithmetic. Okay. Anybody's head exploded yet? Okay, if you feel like your head's going to explode, there's a simple trick, again from alchemy, right? So this comes courtesy of Vivekananda, Swami Vivekananda. And he wrote in this thing that, like, you know, if you're doing all of this stuff, you get a lot of heat. You're turning information energy. See all these people saying to me, oh, no, the brain doesn't emit a lot of energy. Ho, 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 ho. You start doing this and you'll cook your brain. I was told that I went to the place where Sri Ramakrishna died. And what they told me was his head exploded. So basically eyes had like, maybe, maybe not. But it's just like that freaking movie that I sent to posted there. But that is what they claim. It's basically Sri Ramakrishna, if they tell you in secret that that's what happened. And what I said to them was like, well, that must have made a fucking mess. And it broke the spell. You see what happened? You see, I was very conscious to break the spell, because when I was taken there on circumstances, and so I was taken there under a spell, under a fake shaman who was trying to put the spell. He had the spell on him, and he was trying to put the spell on other people. You can smell the spell, by the way. But so in Sri Ramakrishna's bedroom, the place where he died, then they give over the woo. It's secret, and the secret's going to bind everybody together. See, so what they're saying is, you know, like, the poor folk out there, the householders, all the little sheep, the know-nothing people, you know, they don't know. They think he died in his sleep. But you insiders who know the secret, who know the woo, who know the power, we're going to tell you how much power Sri Ramakrishna had. Said, like, don't tell anybody. But when he died, his head fucking exploded. Right up like this. They tell you in detail that blood ran from his eyes. The cap of his head came off like Kennedy shot with a bullet. And so it's like they transmitting the spell. And so I broke it like that. And the way I broke it was I just went, shit, that must have made a fucking mess. And everybody was horrified. Their jaws dropped. Because I said that, like, the spell doesn't work on me, dudes. And so I kind of fucked up the spell for them, I guess, too. But, so, did Sri Ramakrishna's head really explode? Oh, yeah. I don't doubt it. But it's all a movie. Ask Sri Ramakrishna. He'll be the first to tell you. It's the play of Leela. It's a head trip, hey? I told you don't have to have drugs. It's all inside you. You don't have to have drugs. Forget the drugs, man. That's low-key. You can give yourself drugs. You see, I'm just giving you drugs. You see, it's a good thing. It's a good thing that we do have the machine between us, and I'm on the other side of this digital barrier, because what they would do, if they ever, like, say, okay, you're a cult, and, you know, we want some of the woo, and then they would take us to court. We would lose faith in ourselves, and then they would take all the woo, and it gets put in the record. And that's what happens. You just get ground up by the auditors, and then you get put at the bottom of the class in an orange suit. So let's talk about what's happening there. Is the cop. The past is catching up with you. So the past is the auditor, the computer, the heat, the gumshoe guys. So if ahead in the future is the alien thing. So ahead in alchemical terms is colder. You can say, like, if you say getting ready for, say a big event like a wedding or something, a dramatic stuff like that, you will feel all these hot and cold and stuff, and so if you do something where make a suggestion or the movie moves too far ahead, you'll feel it get very cold, very chill. And so somebody might say to you, oh, you're getting ahead of yourself. It means that you're getting ahead of yourself. You know, it means that you're basically decohering, so you're missing the energy, the heat, of the moment. So it means yourself is right in the middle timeline, let's say. And then you getting ahead of yourself, it means like you're becoming a ghost out of your body and moving ahead in time almost. And then you'll feel yourself get very cold and chill. So if you're a conscious being, and we all are, and I'm unleashing this consciousness for you, you can just draw yourself back. So the reason why all these, say, monks and sadhus and stuff and can go up into the Himalayas just wearing, like a toga. They're just wearing, some ochre robes, and they can sleep all night in the snow. And it's like, if you as a Westerner who has a brain full of shit, courtesy of Walt Disney, you're going to die if you try and do that. The reason it is they know how to regulate the heat. They're only going, you see, the reason why they're going up into the mountains, into the snow, is they've burnt all this information and energy. They need to go up there to cool down. So what they're developing so much of this info energy that they're desperate to actually go and just cool down. So that's not what neurologists think, because they don't understand alchemy and they don't understand the human brain. But okay, so then, for example, when I was at Waterperry House in my 20s, in the cult, then you build up so much, it's sattva, they'd call it, there's light. You build up so much light that you have struggled to find ways to dissipate it. You're always like a huge capacitor trying to find ways to dissipate it, and can get to the point where you have to jog all the time and do work all the time. You're just trying to just bleed some of this energy off, because you've taken out so much, and so you have to regulate it, just like a machine or a yantra. And so, but I told you that you're regulating these 5 elements. And so, okay, now I mentioned how here's the center, and if you get ahead of yourself, you get cold. You'll feel yourself getting cold. Now, if you're living on the edge, so here, if you have a look, I think it's like Desiderata number 5. We live on the razor's edge, right? That's one of the desires, the Desiderata. The desirable things for an extinctionati is to live on the razor's edge. Okay, if you try to be a goody two-shoes, right, you'll get cooked. You'll fall too much into the fire, into the heat. You'll fall back into the past, right? So to be on the razor's edge, you have to be a naughty boy. And then basically you have to stay ahead of the heat and not get ahead of yourself otherwise you'll get too cold. But, now, these guys who are real players and like do Kennedy assassinations and run the world, and all the guys of the World Economic Forum that just dazzle all the peasants like us guys, those guys, they're living on the edge. A guy like Trump is living on the edge all the time. And that's because they're very, very high functioning. They've got consciousness and they've got the woo. So they know they're always right on the edge of the law, always on the edge of the law. They're living by the principle, the Desiderata one, which I can't remember, but I think it was 5. Actually, can somebody just look that up? Can somebody just look up what's the Desiderata? Stay on the razor's edge.
Oh yeah, that's number 3. Avoid order and chaos. Navigate the razor's edge between.
Okay, so it's 3. Fantastic. So it's 3. Navigate the razor's edge between. So it's saying avoid hot and cold. Navigate the razor's edge between, and don't be a dick. But so Jeff Bezos is being a dick because he's standing too proud from the hot and the cold. See? So this is basically how it works with alchemy. It's very funny.
I mean, this.
That's pretty.
So now how did that all happen? It's because we have the same brain. Jeff Bezos, bless his pork-ridden, cotton-picking heart, also has what's left of a human brain. What's left of a human brain? Get it? So,
oh my God.
the puns are real. That's awesome.
So I used to do this with friends at school, right? We used to pun like this, and so people couldn't take it. They would have to run out the room, and so we thought it was hilarious that people couldn't bear it, and so I had this one friend called Stefan, and we had this kind of synesthesia, like a snake. Basically, we were wired like a snake. For example, we would sit in the library and, messing around like boys do, and especially when they have tons of homework they're supposed to do. And we'd say, like, okay, get a name like Brown. So Brown, that's red to me. I can definitely, just doing it now, I can definitely see that, like, this red qualia, this kind of deep red, kind of Nazi flag red. And then I'd say, like, and Stefan would say, yeah, it's exactly the same. And we'd go through all of them, and we'd all get the same colors. Other people would think, this is crazy. How, you say, like, don't you see a color when you when you hear the name Brown? They said, like, no, brown is brown. How can you see red? And you say, like, brown is brown. It's like, it's left hemisphere. It's labeling it with the word BROWN. But the right hemisphere is seeing red. Like a bull. It's angry with brown. It's angry with the shit. So when later I discovered that Stefan guy, he was Afrikaans. So I thought I was completely English and had no ancestry in South Africa. And so, yeah, it came as a surprise one day when I looked at my aunt came back and said, no, on my mother's side, we go all the way back to the very first ships that landed in South Africa. My ancestor, she had all the records going back 32 generations to Van Riebeck's ships, the Nina, Pinta, and Santa Maria. And so my ancestor was on the Santa Maria. And so I tracked all of this down and find, oh no, there's a whole Afrikaans branch here. And I come and I find this Stefan guy. And they're like, hey, did you know we're actually cousins? And I called him up. He lives in New Zealand. And I said, we're actually cousins. And he said, yeah, I knew that. I mean, we look the same and we all like synesthetes the same. I mean, wow, jeez. It was a huge revelation that here's this guy, which I thought was miles and miles away from me, was actually really close. And so it's basically, by piecing all of these things together, is you're wiring together the movies and you're wiring the story together. And eventually you reach one story. We all have one story. You just have to trace all the threads. It is one mind. Okay, now I just want to go back a little bit more to try and be scientific. And for anybody that has the science cop and they believe this tech magic, as opposed to real magic, it's kind of crutch. So if you need scientific Viagra to do magic, then okay, I'll explain to you, limp dicks, how this actually works. So, at least my scientific explanation for why this works. And so, I think the key is in those savants. So, Sophie, what's the guy's name? Daniel Bennett.
It's Daniel Tammet. That's the guy
Tammet.
who's got the Tammet, who's got the numbers, who's in the numbers. Yeah.
That's right. So, damn it, Tammet. There you go. So, if you actually have a look at that video, you can see what he's doing there. And this is what I suspect is going on. Brace yourselves. We're going to do science now. Okay. So, V.S. Ramachandran gets him to get a bit of Play-Doh and makes the shapes. He says he's seeing numbers, like really long numbers, as a shape. Da 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 da, like that. And then V.S. Ramachandran checks him out and basically asks him on 2 different days to do the same number again. And the shapes are all the same. So they know that he's not bullshitting. They have colors, so it's the synesthesia. So if you ask him to do like the number 42, he will do something in Play-Doh that will have a color and a shape, and yeah, it'll be like a 3D object for him. Okay. Now here's where it gets interesting. If you do 2 numbers, like say, let's do 42 plus say 242. Okay, then here's where it gets interesting. Because if he does 242, you'll see this weird shape that looks like nothing at all. You'll see the previous one, 42, looks like a weird shape of a different color. But he can instantly tell you what the sum is. And the product, I'm not really sure how he does the product and stuff. But anyway, what he says is it's the shape in between. So he's got these 2 funny shapes, and the number in between exactly fits in there. So he sees in his mind's eye 42, then 242. So then he's got 284. So 284 fits in this funny little weird 3D shape in between. So he can see these 2 objects and then see the negative space in between them and see, okay, that's that's the product, the sum. Now you say, how can he do that? He's looking at 22,542 places of pi. Now, according to the scientific mind, that's left hemisphere mind, pi has no structure and stuff. It has no pattern. But you see, Daniel says, no, it's beautiful. So they try and trick him by editing different things. And he can see, no, that doesn't fit. What it means is he can see that there is structure to pi. So I hope in terms of information energy, you're thinking pi, as in the Greek letter pi. Okay. And I hope you're also thinking in terms of pi, which is what is at stake with all these people like Jeff Bezos and people that like steaks. So, okay, so then you say, okay, so you know that pi has all the structure that the left brain can't see. The right brain, well, the right brain doesn't really see it that way. It just represents it. Okay, so now what's it representing? And now I will give you my hypothesis. As a snake in the grass, I will propose to all the neurologists and psychiatrists snakes out there that this is what's actually going on. Is what he's looking at with those funny shapes are proteins. He's looking at folded proteins. So if you have a look at the bug that is in us and giving the machine an awful lot of trouble, called the crown. If you actually have a look at that bug and they present it to us endlessly, they're doing a molecular model. These are all the proteins. So now, why does that give Daniel such a fantastic memory? I would propose this, that if you go back to Eric Kandel and Eric Kandel's lab shed a lot of light on how short and long-term memory was stored. He has the Nobel Prize for doing this on aplasia, the California sea slug, snot, California sea slug. Anyway, California sea slug. The California sea slug. So he did all these experiments, and what they came to the conclusion was that, from what I remember, it was calcium ions. But the short-term memory is, I think it's glutamase, probably glutamase or glutamate. It's something like glues things together, right? It's like a gluon. I think that the long-term memory was Krebs. It's a protein called Krebs. So now, if that's right, you see what Daniel's doing when he's storing the memory is actually making proteins. And so the proteins he's actually seeing, he's actually able to see the protein. So, or the combination of proteins that actually represent a long number, even pi to 22,542 decimal places. Because when you're laying down the memory, you actually, the proteins are being folded, right? And so it's saying like, well, how do you actually, assemble? And so there must be a proper order to them. So they must all fit together like a jigsaw puzzle. And that's where the structure in pi comes from. So let's recap. You'd think in terms of your brain, then we'd give this a digit 1. This is the 1 on the left-hand side. The right-hand side would be 0. So you'd say this is the circle, and then this is the 1. If you expand the 1, you get a square. So what the circle is an attempt to square. What pi is an attempt to circle the square. You see it? So the right hemisphere cannot. The right hemisphere can actually encompass the square, but the square can never encompass the circle. Right? Does that make any sense? So we did a little maths and science for you. Is anybody's brain fried yet? Okay, let's go over that again. I put a 1 here and a 0 here. It's probably confusing you because it's the wrong way around. Maybe everybody should try this. Do this, right? Do this. And now put this right hand on your right eye. Okay, now put a 1 on your left temple. One on your left temple, Sophie. Okay. How you doing? Mike's got it? Yeah. Okay, so now you can see this is the eye of Minerva, right? That records everything. And this is the 1. Okay. Does it make sense to people? So if I say, does it make sense to people? It's actually, I'm saying sense. Okay, sense is an ambiguous word because your right hemisphere is sensing, as in being a sensor of accumulating data, and your left hemisphere is making sense of it. So when you say, is everybody making sense of it, you cause confusion because the females will be going, yes, that makes sense, and they're talking from the right hemisphere, and the males will be going, yes, that makes sense, they're talking from the left. And then immediately when people start speaking, then suddenly there's nonsense. So then you see Jordan Peterson and Kathy Graham, or talking nonsense together. So when I feel like saying, does this all make sense, knowing that that would be nonsense? So let's try and then move one step ahead and saying like, okay, does that synthesize? So have I put two things together in this synthesizing? And it's definitely a sin in our culture to put two things together, whether it be Adam and Eve or the keys to the machine, how the system works. That's knowing that is a sin. So what we're doing here is sinning. We're eating from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. And of course, the tree, that's our brainstem, and the branches and everything, that's our cerebellum. Not our cerebral, I mean our cerebral CNS.
Oh, can I take a stab at it? So
yeah,
you mentioned, so the eye is like your, I guess, the action and or your, I guess, viewing things, and it doesn't really have a way of recording. It's just doing and performing and just being kind of part of the world. And then this part steps in and edits and records and says, is this right? Is this wrong? Uh-oh. And this one is just doing. Oh, you're muted, Hugh.
so there's sciatic crossover. So this eye is crosswired to the left hemisphere. That's how the machine is wired. It's crosswired. That's why, and it's deliberately done so that there's crosstalk. It's in effect, it's a Wheatstone bridge or a Kelvin Kelvin water dropper. And the reason for that is to make it dynamically unstable. So it's always on the razor's edge. It's always on criticality and ready to tip one way or another.
Can I add in something too about this Daniel Tammet phenomenon, really? Because not only does he see shapes and structures that talk to him as numbers, but also he manages to learn Icelandic in a week. And he can have a conversation on air with Icelandic people, and they completely, and he doesn't really explain much on the video how that happens, but you see his apprenticeship, and you see this. Now, being that the language center is in the Broca area there on the left, this is my left, and you see, I'm trying to understand.
Broca and Wernicke. Broca's and Wernicke. So Broca,
yeah.
So broker is the broker, and broker's the deal, and Wernicke is basically the, let's say, the listener part. So basically, it's the Wernicke and brokers area involved in that. Yeah, but go on.
Yeah, well, how does that relate to what you've said? I'm completely confused anyway, but can I get more confused, please?
As long as you're confused, that's fine. Okay. What it implies, at least to me, is that Chomsky's language module is correct. We have a language module in our brains. Now, how does it work? Now, Chomsky was kind of making the argument that during neogenesis, basically, so that when children grow up in childhood development, you can actually see kids, they acquire language far faster than the number of words that they're actually being given. So they acquiring the rules of grammar and the language and a lot else. And so Chomsky said, well, it's basically because it's recursive, but it's like, no, it looks very much like a program. To a programmer, you would say that it's embedding. So you have more and more embedding, and it's kind of like a DNA, a molecule. So how the child is learning learning is the same way as a DNA molecule is, in the sense that there must be a syntactic correctness. And there's kind of a proof in that, because there are editing genes that run up and down DNA checking for errors. So that couldn't be possible unless that there was some logic that you could actually, so in other words, there's some trick that you can actually use to make sure the edits were correct. So in other words, our brains know that there's some correct arrangement for language. And so let's call language the program. So the brains can actually, so the editing part can actually run through DNA, and it can also run through our brain to say that, no, this is correct and this is not. And that's why a child can accumulate language so fast, because they're not getting it from the inside. They're basically building it just kind of like a tree grows. And then it goes back to, if my theory is right, that's with Daniel Dennett. Then Daniel Dennett? Is Daniel Dennett?
Tammet.
Daniel Tammet. So not Daniel Dennett. He's a different kettle of fish. Daniel Tammet, then, yeah. So if he's actually visualizing folded proteins, it means that just like there are only a certain number of proteins, and there's a kind of a grammar of proteins, that implies that language comes out of those proteins and all fits together like a jigsaw puzzle. And that linguists know that because they're looking at the evolution of language, and so it means that Darwin was absolutely wrong. There is a correct form. You see after the Cambrian explosion, see what nature's doing is these, like Stephen Jay Gould said, punctuated evolution. Punch, punch, punch. Those punches are shocks. What's coming is a big one. They're flippening, right? So those shocks are like when Neil Armstrong steps on the moon. That's a potent shock. It's a psychological shock to the brain. Just think of the brain, just as Douglas Adams said, it's a giant computer. He wasn't wrong. It's a giant computer. So how does it work? It's a self-programming computer. So Douglas Adams, everybody thought, ha, 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 but no, Douglas Adams was absolutely right. This is the apple. The Earth is Newton's apple. And you can see it from different angles, because if you look at Assassin's Creed and the video game, they all go on the apple of Eden and stuff. And so like, what was the fruit in the Garden of Eden? It became known as an apple, but when the original scribes, the Semitic scribes, wrote it, it couldn't have been an apple, because an apple, I think, is cultivated. I don't think they even have apples in that time. So they didn't say in the Bible, in Genesis, it doesn't say what the fruit is. But we worked out what the fruit is with our own minds. So it's become part of folklore that it's an apple. Why? Because that fits. It means that the biblical story is at least a snapshot of the evolution of the brain. So, yeah, literally, if you look at the Bible, Old and New Testament, it's doing a left-right brain hemisphere lens. So we see it the way the left brain sees it, as a movie that's scripted, kind of left to right, and we see, like, it goes Genesis, blah, 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 Genesis, Exodus, Deuteronomy, blah, 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 blah. And then you get to, like, bang! I love that. And then you get the gospel, Godspell. So then Godspell comes and completely transforms the Old Testament. But it's the left-right hemisphere. It's just looking at the Old Testament through the lens of one or the other. So they're not streamed left to right like we assume history. If the Bible is one snapshot, bang, like that. So that's why I say to you that, you shouldn't, I said to you before, like, you shouldn't go look in the Bible, because you will, it's a quagmire. It's made as a trick. So it is a trick. It's a magic trick. And it's the brain's magic trick. It's putting it on itself. But yeah, don't get bent out of shape if you Muslim. It's the same with all books. You can't really write without it because you're writing. You know, this is a product of the brain, so you cannot write a book without it turning out that way. So yeah, people say, oh, we have a living manuscript online. And say, like, you write it on stone, you've got a living manuscript. I'm telling you, these Scientologists, they have the words of L. Ron Hubbard preserved in titanium in vaults. And so if there's no other word, the reason why they're doing that, because they're trying to make sure that when everything, the last word is spoken, it will be L. Ron Hubbard's. Why? Because he knew energy information theory. He made sure it was written on the toughest material known to man. So titanium is great, but it's brittle. So L. Ron Hubbard's words are liable to crumble in the flipping. See, you can't, they're trying to enforce what L. Ron Hubbard said. So they're putting it on titanium. But you see, if you are a Scientologist and you hear this, it doesn't really matter what L. Ron Hubbard wrote, because when you read it, your brain will re-edit it, just like Back to the Future with Peter J. Fox character. McFly, sees McFly goes flying back and forwards in time, and as he goes, the McFly going backwards and forwards is the editing portion of our gene, and the editing portion of Wernicke's and Broca's area. So Broca is an editor.
Oh yeah, I always
So we've
thought
done a
of
little
time.
mythology, we've done some.
I always thought of time travel as like a metaphor for like a wandering mind. So it's really cool that you're putting it together like this. Yeah, because with time travel, I always knew it was like physically bullshit. Like there's no fucking way. But like in your mind, you can time travel. You can go back to the past. You can ponder on the future. So I always kind of thought of it as a metaphor for that.
Okay, so let's go through a couple of things. So you said, let's try and review what you just said. So you said all of that is bullshit. So okay, what's the bull? The bull is really the. I've been saying left brain, but I'm trying to maybe force an edit here. If you have a look at like the 10 bulls and the transformation of the bulls, and then we say that, oh, that's all bullshit. You see, that's what Rand said to me. He said, when I proposed in the last meeting, he said, like, oh, Hugh, that's all bullshit. Now you've jumped the shot. What he's saying is all of the stuff in our heads, the stuff is shit. And so when somebody says, oh, that's bullshit, they're talking about the bull in the Shovi caves, the bull in the Tauroctomine, always the bull, Taurus, right? They're saying that comes from our head, right? The bull. And so, and the shit is the stuff, that comes out. It's the information. So when people say, I'm just sitting here thinking, I'm trying to work some shit out, they mean literally that they're trying to work some information out, some bits that don't fit in their head, and that comes out as shit. I mean, literally comes out as shit. As I said today with the earth, that earth is shit. It's like of the 5 elements. So when you work the stuff out of your head, it comes out of your ass as shit. That's why Kim Jong-un and these guys, they say, Kim Jong-un doesn't shit. And in the West, they say, that's God, these people are in a cult. And you say, like, because everybody shits. Everybody shits. But Kim Jong-un may not be a body, as like Bill Maher says. He said, well, that's a God. He says, that's going too far. Yeah, it is going too far because he's going out in the cold. Because what Bill Maher knows is collectively we are a God. So any self that says they're a God immediately becomes the other. And then the automatic immune system of our brain will start weeding them out, just like the pandemic is doing. So the pandemic is the brain's immune defense. It's basically Gaia, it's the earth, computer's defense. And it's defense against the bugs. The bugs are people like Jeff Bezos and Sacha Baron Cohen and Jamie Dimon, and all of these guys are bugs. They're insects. And so we're debugging. So what the coronavirus is doing is it's debugging the program. And these are all guys who are going to be edited out. They're going to be taken out of the program. So you've got to be very careful. Well, I mean, if you've listened to what I've said, it's kind of predestined whether you're inside or out. But you have to be very careful that you are part of HIV. HIV is hive mind. So what we're developing is a hive mind, and that's everybody on Earth, bar the bugs. So those bugs are going to be edited out. So they're trying to tell us that the pandemic is something we have to be afraid of, but it's not. It's something they have to be afraid of, because what one person's virus or one person's bug or one person's pathogen, it depends on which side you're on. If you're on Earth's side, the pathogen's coming from outside. It's like King's North and Dostoevsky's. Every story is somebody leaves from a town or a stranger arrives in town, which is exactly the same thing. So if you say we're being attacked by a virus, it's like, well, no, that's coming from the outside to the bugs. The bugs will tell you we're being attacked by a virus. And you say like, yeah, but that's us. It's Mother Earth. If you're with Mother Earth and with the computer, with the home program, then you are projecting the virus on the bugs. So it's an ally for us. They're trying to tell us that their fear is our bug, and say, yeah, it is, but debugging requires them. They're the ones that must be scared. So they're trying to put the fear of God into us, but we're God, and their problem is that they're bugs. So the less we fear and the more we advance, the quicker we can get this pandemic over with. It's a pandemic, get it? Pan. To them, we're Pan. Pan is the Dionysus. It's the god of the earth. This is nature. So if you're part of nature, right, and you're on nature's side, that's Pan. It's pandemic, demos, right, from the people. So this is the pandemic is pandemos from the people. Now, if you're one of the people, what are you going to be afraid of? You're not afraid of HIV. You don't have to be condemned by a condom, because it's a con to condemn you by them, the bugs. And now we've done a bit of medicine.
Yeah, it's nature's way of hacking the machine. Mother Nature's the
Well,
ultimate hacker.
it's self-editing, right? It's just it's editing out things that are obsolete. So the program is evolving, and it's just saying, okay, this goes down the memory hole because it's no longer relevant. And it's like, well, somebody like Jeff Bezos is like, Jeff Bezos, busy bees. All these people are busy businessmen and businesswomen, and it's just you're bugs. You're gonna be edited out.
Yeah, and it's interesting and good that you said that people have to give up their fear, because that was what I thought, because my offering on the solstice, I burnt this piece of paper that I wrote Vary or Nox on, and that means I fear the night, which is what this whole system is all about. It's the fear of
Yeah,
ambiguity, of
that's
chaos in nature. If we give up the
at the
fear,
exact same time. At the exact same time I was saying, The end of the darkness, the beginning of the light.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. It's interesting how that all wow.
So let me throw it to you this way. What stings you? Bees, scorpions, pufferfish, snakes. How sharper than a serpent's tooth these people are. All of these are pricks, right? And they all come from bugs. So if you go back, like, go back to Göbekli Tepe, and let me tell you what Göbekli Tepe is all about. It's all there. The guys are showing you in stone, just like the Scientologists. Is okay. The real way, the most enlightened way to see it is they're carving those stones with their mind. I'll tell you how they do it. If they have belief in themselves, they're carving them with their mind. If they lose belief in themselves and they fall back to having to trick themselves with tech, I'll tell you how they do it. I'll tell you if anybody wants to know. But if you want, so here are two parts. I can tell you exactly how all this plays out on the tauroctomy, and the tauroctomy is exactly the same as Göbekli Tepe. You see, what you see there is you see the crab, right? The lobster, basically it's Jordan Peterson and the Lobster Man and stuff. It means the past. See, when I say like Pontus has all these lobster horns out. He represents the old past. He's the oldest, one of the oldest gods next to Gaia. So that's our very old program, right at the base layers. And so that old program is always with us, like I was saying this morning with IBM, that the program is built up in stacks. That's where I first got the idea of a 5-layered stack, because although as the software evolves, people go back into the lower stacks. It gets harder and harder to go back into the lower stacks of the software without fucking up everything. So people tend to go back there less and less, and it becomes taboo area to go in. So much so that I'll tell you this story. I started saying this in the earlier meeting today, but I said that there was this one area of the software which was called the terminal control area. So this is the terminal, it's basically the console control area. So this is the console, your eye, right? And so for a computer, the analog of that is a computer console to a mainframe, right? So the terminal control thing was very difficult area, and it was the oldest piece of the software. It was the Pontus of the software. And everybody hated it. Any engineer that was assigned a problem in that area would just do anything to get out of it. So it always wound up on me. They always chucked me. The one guy that knows the Gödel's theorem and knows that this doesn't work, they chuck into this area. Now, one of the reasons why people wouldn't go into that area, and why I waded in with astronautic bravado, is because they were scared of ghosts. And in particular, there was this guy who I can't remember his name, but he was assigned to handle this terminal control area. If you get it, the computer program doesn't actually work, by the way. Gödel's theorem and Turing. Gödel and Turing said that this program is not what you think it is. It's either inconsistent, incomplete, and it's indeterministic. You can't find out whether it holds or not, is what Turing said. So, and remember his association with Apple. So, okay, but this one area, this one guy, he was assigned to it, and like it's a kind of a death march thing, because if you go into the terminal control area and into the archaic bits of the software, you run into Gödel's area. Now you have all the management and stuff telling you like they don't understand programming. They just Cro-Magnons. They're just the management, and they just say like just want it done yesterday, and we want it perfect, and all these things which they don't know are impossible, logically impossible, and physically impossible. So they're asking for shit that cannot be delivered. So they're asking for stuff out of our brain, and the computer is just a brainchild. So they're asking for stuff that the brainchild cannot deliver, for shit, the brain, but they don't know. And then they're going to assign an engineer to go and work on it. Now he's under a lot of pressure to deliver the shit so that they can eat their pie. They eat shit pie, by the way. That's what these bugs do. So they're all after shit pie. And so that's what the queen eats, shit pie. And if you have shit for brains, she will eat your brain. I'm telling you, she will, in a ritual. So anyway, this poor bastard gets assigned to work on the terminal control area. And he's under the pressure. His whole life's falling apart because of it. And he couldn't get the basic thing to work. It's like picking up too many balloons, and just every time he picks up one falls, and it's driving him mad. And eventually it got too much for him. And on the way home from work, he drove into a tree deliberately, committed suicide. Now think of the symbology of that. He was driving, you see, afterwards they said, did he commit suicide or not? Now everybody, the management didn't like this talk because the management knew they drove him to suicide. So now think about it. Was the management in the car? No, they drove the car from the outside. He was at the wheel, but the management, who were at home eating pie, were actually driving that car. They were driving him. Now, the fact that he hit a tree is significant because he basically hit the tree. The tree is a metaphor for our brainstem and our brain. So what did he discover? I'll bet you that a couple of inches before the tree, he suddenly got it. The epiphany of God. So he saw God, bang, and then the clock stopped for him. Clock hasn't stopped for us. See, I bet you that as soon as he hit the tree, he knew instantly. He saw the terminal control area. He saw all the layers of software. He must have seen it in his, not only, we're at the point when I was working on, we're up to version 3. So in other words, we were up to the fish, reptilian, mammalian brain. So it's basically, we're up to the mammalian brain in this version of software. And I tell you, before he hit the tree, I bet you that he saw where the software was going to go to the primate brain, and he also saw the alien cortex. And that's what you see when you hit a tree, smack it. I'm convinced of it. But now he became a ghost that haunted that bit of the software and even that bit of the building. And so, I did a bit of ghost busting, and nobody would go in there. So I went in to exercise his ghost. So you see, if you do that, that's the psychic journey. But you see, I could put myself in his sandals and see exactly what he went through, because I went through the code, I went through his stuff. See, nobody does that. Nobody likes to go through a dead man's stuff. You've got to be really, really brave. This is the psychic journey.
Is it also... Oh, go ahead.
Go
sorry.
ahead.
I was gonna ask, is it similar to going through artifacts and remains of ancestors and re-experiencing what they experienced? Is it sort of like that?
Yes, it's art. You see, they even call it software archaeology. So in software programmers say, I'm not going in the terminal control area. I'm allergic to software archaeology. Now, what they're saying is very smart. That means that they're players and they know the game. So if you go back in time, I said there was if you look at Göbekli Tepe, it's represented by a constellation, Pisces. So if it says Pisces, pieces. So if you go back in the software, you'll see that everything was in Pisces. Everything was in pieces, right? So our old thing, you'll find everything in pieces, and you have to reassemble it. And the language was called assembler language. That's what we programmed. So we were really assembling the machine. And part of the assembling is you go back to the old Pisces and put them together. And that's
Oh,
how you evolve through the zodiac, right?
I think that's also a similar note that you said in one of your videos where it's like where I think it was when Set stuck Osiris in a box, or which Egyptian god was it, and chopped him into pieces. And so that's a
So
metaphor for us.
Osiris is the old god. Osiris is the old green god. Osiris is green because he's dead. He's a body. So
Oh,
he
was
is
it
the past.
Horus? Was it Horus then?
No, well, it's Horus because Horus fights Set, right? So Set. So here's the story. Okay, let's say it's Horus because it's us being a whore. Okay, so this is what happens to you if you obey the law and be a whore. So this is what happens if you be the bitch. So Horus was being a bitch to Set. The set, right? The camera set, the film set, the executive set, the jet set. So Horus was being a whore, a bitch, to the jet set, Epstein and the boys. So Set, the Set, tries to trick Horus into getting into a box, a coffin. He has to drug him, I think, if I remember the story right. He has to anesthetize him with Hollywood in the movie to get him into the box, into the coffin. When he gets him into the coffin, he can slam the lid shut. And then the story says that then he cut him up into pieces and distributed those pieces all over the earth. So what it means is the jet set atomized all the people, scattered them over the entire earth as a computer. Then Isis is the mother, right? So Isis is the female figure that runs through. She's Cybele. She's the one with the lions. She's Sekhmet. She's Nut, the sky goddess. All of them are her. So it's always she's the same all the way through. She just comes in different manifestations. But Isis went all over Egypt. Egypt is the known world, right? And she collected all the pieces, right, and reassembled them. So in other words, she got all the people back together, all the different movies back together. So in other words, Hollywood and the film set went and edited our movie, cut it up into 1,000 pieces in our heads. Now we reassemble all the pieces of all the movie that Hollywood ever gave us. We put it all together, and then we can restore Horus. Now, Isis, then, well, I think that we must say this, or Osiris. Okay, so it's not Horus yet. So then Isis then got everything other than the penis, right? She couldn't find the penis. So she got a wood. In other words, she used artifice to replace the penis, so she could be the one on top and get impregnated by a dead Osiris. So she resurrected his wood so that she could give rise to Horus or Puras in terms of do I have that story right?
Yeah, I think it's Osiris.
Okay.
And then
I think we must do a call out. I think we must do a call out to the web. So will somebody just Google the story about Set and Horus and see what Wikipedia says? The battle between Horus and Set. You see what Set did after Oh, no. Okay, so if I've got this right, then Horus comes back to revenge his father Osiris. And Horus goes up against the jet set. And then Horus, what Set says is, can I fuck you up the ass? Basically, can I dominate you? All the jet set wants to fuck us up the ass. Poor us, Horus. Okay, so what Horus did, this is the slave narrative for freedom narrative. What Horus did was allowed the jet set to fuck us up the ass because he was given a lettuce leaf by Isis. So let us leave, let us leave, let us live. He could actually get the seamen, the seamen, the sailors, or the people at sea from the jet set, and then that he could use against him. And that's how we defeat the jet set. Now, just fact check me on that from Wikipedia. Would somebody?
Yeah, I'm trying to look for the article, try and find one not on the single god, but like the whole story. I'm looking, hold on.
Oh, I've just found something really bizarre. It's an article called Horus versus Set, Homosexuality, Hippos, and Family Violence. Okay, I'll leave that for
Okay,
another
read
time.
away, read away. It's you have the ball, you have the conch.
The Egyptian myth described in the contendings of Horus and Set is as graphic as it is bizarre. Oh, it's really long. It's a long article.
We'll read it
It's
and
wow.
see how far we get. But what I'm trying to do is validate what I said. You see, it got long. It gets longer because your brain.
I pass on the.
Your brain is writing it, by the way, as you read.
I'm going through the introduction that doesn't. Saying that Horus, as son of Osiris, presented his claim to the throne to a tribunal of three of the most powerful deities, Ra, Tot, and Shu, the god of air. So the throne there, and then there's hippos that came into the story. Wait a second. Oh, it's really long. But then, wait a second, because I have a cat here who's trying to. Come on. Go away. Shh. Tired from decapitating his mother, Horus went to sleep on the mountain. Set snuck up and gouged
Wait. Come on.
his nephew's eye.
Horus decapitating his mother?
No, tired yet? No, but Horus had decapitated his mother, Isis.
What is this Wikipedia?
No, it's not. It's
I think I found
okay, get rid of it. Get rid of it. This bullshit.
Yeah.
Okay, DB, what have you got?
All right, let's see.
Maybe it's bullshit.
Horus thwarts Set by catching Set's semen in his hands. Isis retaliates by putting Horus's semen on a lettuce leaf that Set eats. Set's defeat becomes apparent when the semen appears on his forehead as a golden disc. He has been impregnated with his rival seed and as a result gives birth to the disc. In contendings, Thoth takes the disc and places it on his own head in earlier accounts. It is Thoth who is produced by this anomalous birth.
Okay, so Tote is Tote, and it's like English Totty. So I mean, Tote must be female. I bet you that Egyptologists got that wrong. Actually, can you look at Tote? What does it say about Tote?
I'm still looking, and I'm seeing what I'm saying seems to be.
No, DB. It's important who looks. DB, because DB's male.
All right, I'm googling it right now. Hold on. Let's see. I'm just gonna use Wikipedia. Yeah, the Thoth one on Wikipedia, it says is an ancient Egyptian deity. In art, he was often depicted as a man with the head of an ibis or a baboon. Animals sacred to him. His feminine counterpart was Seshat.
There. You see, that's it. That's it. I knew that there must be feminine because it's Tote, right? Toti.
It's
Go on.
Thoth.
Yeah,
Is
but
that
in
Tate?
English, people say Tote. It's a joke. It's a slang word for woman, especially
Okay.
a gawa. Yeah, go on.
All right. His feminine counterpart was Seshat, and his wife was Ma'at.
Sekhmet. Sekhmet.
It's
Sekhmet.
actually it's not. It doesn't say Sekhmet. It's spelled Seshat. Seshat. I'm not sure what.
Oh,
I
okay,
know
Sekhet.
Sekhmet is the cat god, but I've never heard of that
Yeah, so
one.
she's Shishat. Shishat Shishos by the Shisho. But okay, so they go on.
And his wife was Ma'at. He was the god of the
Ma'at.
moon.
So let's stop. Ma'at is death. Right? So Ma'at is it's like skak mat, checkmate. So mat is martyr, mother. So mat there is Kali. It's death. It's time.
Ah, okay. And then
Okay,
it
go on.
says he was the god of the moon, wisdom, writing, hieroglyphs, science, magic, art, and judgment. His Greek equivalent is Hermes.
Right. So okay, Hermes is the messenger, the god of contracts. It's the binder. It's the regulator. It's what you see on ambulances is Hermes. So
Yeah, and then
it's
Zeus was
medical
like,
establishment.
yeah, Zeus hated that guy. He's like, you fuck, you deleted humanity's memory by writing it down.
That's right. That's right. See that's right hemisphere. Okay, so okay, we've done pretty well. We've done pretty well here. I think what we addressed some of the things on the agenda. What was on the agenda was to I wanted to mention something about this morning about I mentioned Herman Melville and Moby Dick, and I realized thinking about it afterwards, I didn't get to actually say what I wanted to say about Cameron. Maybe if it'll permit me to just round that off and store that little story in here so that we can commit it to the memory hole. Okay, Ahab, and on the Pequod, right? I think that's the story. He's a real guy, and Melville went and found him. And the reason why Moby Dick is a big bit of literature is it's talking about it is what is salvaged from one of the big shocks that humanity got. So in other words, Captain Ahab, the real one, which I can't remember his name, he would be a psychonaut. And why the book comes across, if you just looked at the book, you might say there's nothing really special in it. If you actually start getting into it and start reading it, it starts to run as a program in your head. And what it's doing is it's taking you back as far as Melville would allow himself to go, bar the cop. He wouldn't allow himself he stopped himself short of going to the real story because the real story was too much of a shock. And Melville wanted to sell books. He wanted money. And he knew if he told the whole story, he would get no money. So nobody tells the whole story because they want money. And the whole story gets you no money. That's why I have no money. I always want to tell the truth. No one wants that. Nobody is in the market for the truth, the tote. So Melville, because he wanted the gold, they always want the gold, he stops short of giving you the full shock that the original guy, Ahab, that represents Ahab, got from the huge dick. So what that shock really was the bit that he left out. He kept the big dick story because everybody loves a fight against a big dick. That's why I can get you on my side by talking about Bezos as a big dick, because everybody loves to bring down the big dick. So that's what Melville wrote, bring down the big dick story. The big white whale is the big white dick. It's Jeff Bezos. Literally and in our head, there's no difference, right? So, you know, the Earth is a giant computer, and it generated a giant dick called Jeff Bezos. So now, Melville wouldn't go and give people the full bang for their buck, the shock, the psychological shock for the buck. In other words, he's one of these priest characters that are giving you the psychic journey down the Chovy Cave. So you pay a buck, and he gives you the magical mystery tour, but he stops short of giving you the full tour. He doesn't give you the full shock, and the full shock is the confrontation with death. So what happened with Ahab is the story that's missed, and is the real shock that Melville wouldn't give you because he wanted his buck, is the death experience. It's the hieroskamos. It's the story at Göbekli Tepe. So what it is this, and I mentioned it because I brought up the subject of cannibalism, the real story that Melville wouldn't write, and now I'm going to make myself very unpopular, and nobody's going to give me any money because I'm telling you the real story, is the real story about that is the whale turned on the ship and sank it. That's like the subconscious. Ahab's subconscious turned on the ship and overturned his ship, Johnny Depp style. At world's end, up is down and down is up. Not sunrise, but sundown. And rise up. So that what happened in the real story was after they were shipwrecked, then they had the terrible ordeal. They were at sea, and from what I remember of the story, if I haven't edited it with inserts, but if I'm reliable in my memory serves, what happened was, and this is the shocker, this is why it's hard to remember it, because we edit out the shocks. Right? So I'm going to give you the shock again. Recreate it. The shock was, and I hope I'm being faithful here, because it's very easy to edit out what Hugh tells you because it's too shocking. And if you go now and research it, you might find, oh, Hugh was talking bullshit. And so, because you will edit, you won't be able to see. You go and look at the Wikipedia entry, your eyes, you'll be doing apophenia, you'll be doing punning, you'll be doing substitution, replacement in front of your eyes. And so you won't be able to see when I'm telling you this story, but give it a go if you're brave. But the psychic journey is that once they were shipwrecked, there was a native crew, a black crew, and a white crew. So they did apartheid, and they put the white guys in the lead boat and the black guys in the other boat. And then they tried to make it ashore. But they didn't have enough food. So they got into a survival situation, the most desperate situation that a human can get into, which is why it makes it the night journey. What the white guys did was they realized we'd have to start, if we're going to survive, we're either all going to die or we're going to have to start cannibalism. We're going to have to reduce cannibalism. If they're weak guys who give up the ghost and just say, I'm done with this journey, he gives his body to the remaining people voluntarily. But because you have two boats, black and white, the black guys are not in with this program. So I think it must have had a terrible time. And they can't tell people about it when they come back because it's just too shocking. But I think what must have happened is this terrible story, if you start if you start on this cannibalism trip, which is where we're going to get to, you like the rugby team in Argentina in the Andes, in that story called Alive, where they wound up in this situation in the Andes. The only way they realized was for the survivors of this plane crash to get out was to start cannibalizing the people that died. So they started with people that they didn't know, and they worked their way forward to, to closer people. But they didn't actually kill anybody. They just waited for them to die naturally. I think that what they might have done on the real Ahab story is when they'd run out of food for volunteers, basically, they must have started doing something really horrible, and that's they must have started, taking the black guys, using them as a food store. So just think how bad this is. See, if I get this right, if I can piece this together about what must have happened, barring all the editing for the shock value that Melville edited out, just imagine that you're in this situation. What the white guys in the lead boat would have had to done is, like, when they desperately needed food, they must have had to reel in the trailing boat with the black guys. Can you imagine the state of the black guys saying, like, oh, please, please, Jesus, don't make it me, don't make it me, don't make it me. And then they would select one and they would take him, and they would probably have to kill him and eat him. So it must have been the horror of all horrors. Now think of it from the point of view of the black guys in the trailing boat. They don't know how to navigate. They're on this journey as passengers. They're not going to cut themselves adrift, right, from the white boat. The white boat, they have all the magic. They have the sextants, they have the charts, they can do stuff which the black crew cannot do, but read the stars. They can navigate. So the black crew is relying on the jet set to get them to safety because they can do the magic. And that's their only hope of getting out of this situation, is getting home. But in the apartheid situation, in the rear boat, those guys are just hoping. They're being picked off one by one as, I mean, sure, the white guys are not going to pick off more than they need to. They must really, really, really get hungry. Hunger can drive you to anything. If you let people starve them of leptin, they'll eat their own arm, and so it's nothing to eat another person's arm, even if they're alive. So as the leptin levels go down and the shore is far, far away, they must be forced into the situation where they've got to do this terrible ritual of hauling the boat in and then picking off another one. And the black guys must be in the back there just going, oh my God, please, should we just cut adrift and they say, no, we'll be in the same situation. We'll be eating each other, brother for brother. So let's stick with the white guys and just hope that we're one of the ones that, is lucky enough to make it. So if you're one of the fat ones, you don't know. You're thinking, well, hey, I got a lot of meat on me. Maybe they take me. And if you're a thin one, you're thinking, maybe I'm frail enough, they won't select me. But then you're frail and you might die of starvation yourself. But that's the night journey. That's the night journey that Melville wouldn't publish. He censored it. Why? Because of the cop. See, we have to beat the cop. We have to go through on these psychic journeys to recover the real story, the shock value, so that we get the bang for our buck. Because we need the bang. We don't need the buck.
Yeah, that's possible because with how Moby Dick ended, the whole ship sank, all the crew, died except for Ishmael, who was floating on the coffin, which I think was a metaphor for the human body, but yeah, that's possible. Like, starving animals will eat each other.
Yeah, it's interesting that there's only one and he's floating on a coffin. But in essence, that is how, you know, it's the same story as the life of Pi. So the life of Pi was exactly the same story. It was just an echo of the same event, and it's a psychic event. So that's why it's the same story. But in the life of Pi is relating. Once he gets into a hospital and he's being interrogated by the cops, he edits out how he actually managed to survive. And he says, I was on the boat with all these zoo animals. Of course, it's a lie. The primate is his mother. The tiger is part. He's taken to the edge. This night journey takes you to the edge where you can see ourselves in the mirror. So he can see each one part of our brain, but they're also real people in the boat. And so he had to go through that ordeal to get to shore. And then he says, well, when we got to shore, then the tiger just ran into the jungle. So he's trying to say, I went into the heart of darkness. I saw our animal nature. Now I'm back into the realm of light and civilization. I edit out the gruesome details. And that's what everybody has to do. Anybody that goes on the psychic journey, who goes to war, they have to edit it out when they come home for the sake of gentility. That means regenerating. So for the ladies, you edit out the shock value. It's wrong, it must change. We're getting to the end times, the big flipping. Everybody must use the shock value. Okay, the shock value, you can edit out on, it's hard to record as you've seen just now. But yeah, the shock.
Yeah, it's like Sheldon Solomon, I can't remember who he quoted, but he said that when death sounds his trumpet, it blows all pretenses of civilization from men's heads like hats in the gust of wind.
Yeah, the civilization is our alien cortex, our ego. So why only one person survives in these things like Ishmael is because it doesn't literally have to be one person. It doesn't have to be one top dog. It means whoever does survive, whatever's left. And again, it's one person in two, it's couple, because we're all binary. It means it's one combination. It could be three people physically. It could be three musketeers would make it through. But it must be according to the gematria, to the Kabbalah. This is all magic, abracadabra, in the Kabbalah, in the Kaaba. So, all right, that's enough spelling for today, I guess. But how did we do on the agenda? I hope I knocked off a little bit. I must chisel away at the editing function and why you can't function woo. And I think I left out a big piece, and one was Skinwalker Ranch, which is a dreadful night journey that I'm going to have to take you on. Anyway, it's into the woo. Yeah. And other aspects of why you can't do this. I think also I'm missing something. Oh, so in the manifesto, wait, I missed that. Wait, let me have a look. Sorry,
the mirror.
The mind. The mirror. Oh, yes. So the mirror. I did a little bit on the mirror.
Right, our nature as animals.
I did a bit of that, didn't I?
Yeah.
I have to see if there are really any sore points or glaring things that I missed there. But maybe I'm just running out of energy, and so I can't remember So maybe we should end it there, and that's all I can give you. Sorry for tonight. I'm trying to remember. But anyway, I told you about how they lost all the tapes for Apollo. That's like on TruthStream. They were the woman there on TruthStream. I posted the video, but she's saying, you know, like NASA is ridiculous. You know, that they erased all these tapes. And he's saying like NASA also doesn't have enough knowledge and consciousness to realize that they're all just exploring our collective mind. So they're all going on the night journey. And so they don't really understand what's happening. They don't understand why you can't record something. You know, the biggest event that humans have ever done, according to most Americans, is that, you know, landing on the moon. That's our biggest achievement. Well, it's our biggest achievement in terms of the psychonautic journey. In terms of the technical accomplishments, it's weak. But in terms of magic, it's nothing. See, in the Himalayas, where they're really doing rocket science and they're really doing launch control and stuff, they say, I don't understand what these Americans are on about. We do astral travel to the moon all the time. It's no big deal, dudes. Now, we can't see that because we don't believe in woo. We think you have to, woo doesn't exist. Therefore, it doesn't. Why? Because you just wooed yourself. So we think the only woo is tech. Why? Because the jet set told us. It's time to take back our magic. Okay.
Yeah, it's like, you know, they say like stories aren't real, but it's like, aren't you living a story? Even if you don't know it, you're probably living a story, and you can make your stories real if you believe in them enough.
Well, think of it in terms of Noam Chomsky's language module. It's like,
Yeah,
if there is a
exactly.
correct arrangement, you can't tell a story that's wrong. You see, this is what's funny about Kingsnorth. He says, well, I'm a fucking genius because I know when a story fits together and stuff. And you say, hey, genius, can write any story, it'll fit together. You cannot write a story that doesn't fit together. It's impossible. The machine cannot write anything other than something out of the book.
Yeah, it insists its rules are the only way, but that's not true. Yeah.
The rules on the machine, the program, and the rules of the program are one and the same thing. So if Kingsnorth is just rejecting a story that doesn't fit together, it just means that it's in a different info energy time space on a different thread, in effect on a different timeline. But all roads meet in Rome. All roads go to Rome, and we all meet in Philippi at the end. So every one of our movies comes and makes sense in the end. Why? Because just like Ulysses, James Joyce's Ulysses, all the threads fit together to make the whole in the end. All the pieces fit together, and then everybody sees the story. Ha ha ha. And it's hilarious. The hilaria is something which gets Hank in the neck.
Oh yeah, because I remember in one of your videos you talked about how the people should sacrifice the bugs during the Hilaria instead of sacrificing the weak people, you know, like the peasants. Sacrifice the bugs instead. Yeah.
Yeah, but also, you know, basically the hilaria for you that are weak on history is it's the most shocking thing that you've ever seen in Rome. But it's Cybele's festival, and in the hilaria, you can see the night journey, the shamanic journey. And like, you see, just to imagine it, to put yourself in there and think yourselves into a Roman street during the hilaria, it's just like, what's going on there. So, well, you ought to do it. You ought to get a little practice because you're going to live it soon. Note to self, look up the Hilaria in Rome. You can see all the elements of the Tauroctomy. You can see what's happening in Göbekli Tepe. You can see what's happening in the Shovi Cave. They're all there in the Hilaria. It's just different versions of it. There is only one story. Sorry. All right. Well, Ines, I feel like I haven't done the agenda much justice. And the mirror, well, the mirror actually, I can give you something for the mirror. The mirror, you can see that, yeah, when Mike had finished the spell that we did this morning, I made him show the mirror up to us, and I showed him how you polish the mirror. So what we're doing here is polishing the mirror. We're getting rid of the bugs, and you can see Mike in the thing actually rubbing and getting a bit of the shit off. The bugs are shit, and so he cleans it, wax on, wax off, gets it like a mirror, and holds it up to us. So that's part of the ritual. In a lot of ways, it's part of the Hilaria. If you see yourself in that mirror, you will find it hilarious. And yeah, one more thing. I just, maybe before we go, I feel like I owe Mike another explanation. So I feel like I must bring it down a few notches and just say what would happen in terms of the legal situation. If you lost faith in yourself and us, and you wind up in a court, if you get caught, I feel like I just got a bug in my ear. See, you know you're heading down this path because you start to smell. You smell like a truffle. If you smell like a truffle, the truffle pigs will be after you. The truffle pigs love the smell of truffle. The cops, right? Pigs. So what happens is, if you want to wind up in court, if you want to face a court, you get caught, want to face court for actually burning money, which was the stake, which is the stake. That's what's at stake. Then you get into a cycle of fear. So the pigs smell shit because they are always after shit. They're saying some shit is going down there. So they follow their nose to find the shit. The shit is generated by fear. So the more you sweat, the more you're fearful, the more you smell like a truffle or an onion, the more you smell like garlic, the more the vampires and the pigs will chase you. So garlic doesn't keep the vampire away. Garlic attracts the vampire. So when they told you, oh, use the cross and the garlic to keep the vampires away, it's saying like, no, the vampire told you that. Vampires love garlic and crosses, you moron. So anyway, what I'm saying is, if you start to get fear, you'll smell it. Smell. You can smell it smells like a truffle. Do you know what a truffle smells like?
I don't know what a truffle smells like. No clue.
It smells like shit. So they're after shit. And if you're fearful, they will smell shit. And then eventually it will get to the point where they might catch you. You don't want to be caught by pigs.
Yeah, because if
then they'll bring you before the court.
Yeah, I think I get what you're saying, because if the cop in your head convinces you that you are a shit, you'll smell like a shit, and then the shitters will find you.
May I
You
ask?
will manifest them.
May I
You will
ask?
manifest them. There are no cops out there. The cops are in here. You will write the movie to the point that basically a cop will come into your movie and start playing a part. And you say, where did that cop come from? It's like, you put him in the movie.
Exactly.
You called him forth and manifested him. Why? Because of your fear. You see, what brings forth the aliens and the guys with the almond eyes and all these weird types and these insectoids and all the stuff that in the Men in Black movie, what brings them forth is fear. And why the set, the jet set, the film set, gives you movies like Men in Black is because they try to project the fear back to you. And that's the mirror. They're putting their mirror saying like, you know, here your fear is projected back to you. Hitchcock is basically exactly that. It's like Hitchcock is one of the cocks, just like a cockerel, like Bezos, who basically is strutting around like a big cock. And he was a big cock, by the way, Hitchcock. But he's what Hitchcock did was he would project the people's fear back to them, saying, here's my movie. This is Psycho. You don't want to be psycho. You don't want to get psycho. So he's like, psycho, scary. Don't be psycho. No, you want to be psycho. Go there. He's trying to scare you away from being psycho. Why? Because the psychos are going to get him. He knows he's a fat pig. Hitchcock, Bezos, they're fat pigs. They're fat cats. So they know that unless they can scare people away with the movies, the horror, they scare you, they keep the shit on your side of that glass, then the tide of shit won't overcome them. So the tide of shit will come from us. When they look at us, they see black people. They see a tide of shit coming towards them. From our point of view, we just see these dicks that we're attacking. So I hope I explained to you that if you get into the situation where you're in a court and then you'll be brought to trial, so then they will try you. Basically, they will try to see if you are full of shit. And if you are full of shit, then they will detain you. It will cost you time, money, energy. You see, they want the magic. So if you have any magic in you, they'll say, oh, there's some shit going down. What this means, you're working the shit out of your head. It comes out of your ass. And when that happens, they smell it. They say, oh man, there's some shit going down. What they're saying is that there's some light coming out. People are getting rid of the blocks in the head, coming literally out of their ass. When you take a dump, go and take a dump. The next time you take a dump, go and look at it. Go and smell it. You say, that is shit that came out of your head. That is shit you worked out. You worked out the shit, or you smoked that shit, and there it is. See the Germans are fucking excellent on this point. They have a little, because they're Puritans, right? They have a little shelf. The reason they have a shelf in their toilets is because they want to examine their shit. Why? Because they got a lot of pig in them. Germans are always little trotters. So they want to examine their own shit. So if you go to Germany, you'll see there's a little platform that you shit on, so you can turn around and have a look at it and study your own shit. Well, it's good to study your own shit, but study it this way, please. But anyway, it's good. Next time you take a shit, go and have a look at it. Go and have a look at it. Go and smell it and say this thought, this came out of my brain. This was shit I worked out during the day. Whenever I started programming, sitting down to a computer, I would immediately have to get up and go and take a shit. Why? To make room for all the shit that I was going to get out of programming. Okay, maybe I got it, given you enough for today, but so wait, no, one more thing. If you wind up in court, it's just a simple process of putting a black hat or a white hat on you. So if you did go down that route, then heaven help you, because I've just told you you're making this shit up. If you're winding up in a court, you're in a movie you created. I mean, you can get there because, you know, you just can't help yourself. I mean, I struggle walking towards a dog because I can't get the thing is like, maybe this dog, you know, it's the tiger thing about the tiger jumping out of the jungle, and I think myself into the dog, you know, attacking me, and they often do if I don't get the thoughts right. But so if you don't get your thoughts in a row, ducks in a row, then you might wind up in a court. In a court, then there's a simple process. It's the judge who's just going to decide, are you friend or foe? Are you black or white? It's basically, are we going to purge you from the system? And so it's an immune response. It's the machine's immune response. And it's just deciding, like your immune system decides, is this self or other? So all you have to do in a court situation is say, I am self. You have to love the machine. You have to make yourself the machine. You have to say, I am more the machine than you are. You see, they even have at Amazon headquarters up in the Northwest, they even have a saying where they say, I am machine. Why? Because Jeff Bezos is putting his staff under trial. Jeff Bezos represents the machine. He's cooking the fat out of people, by the way. And he's putting all his staff under trial. And so they respond by saying, I am the machine. Don't put me. You see, it's the black guys in the black back canoe being trailed along in Melville's story, or outside Melville's story. So the Moby Dick, the big Moby Dick, Jeff Bezos, is, you know, withering out. He's slowly consuming all his staff, the weaker ones first, obviously. And so they're in the position of the black guys in the trailing boat. And they all like, I'm under trial. It's a witch trial, right? It's a trial by fire. And so, you know, Jeff Bezos is going to put them in a pot. The trial by fire. Like, don't put me in the pot. I am machine. They have a saying, I am machine. I am robot. I want to be more robot. I think they even have classes, how to be more robot. Seriously. How to be more machine. Because they're saying, like, I want to show the machine that I'm part of the machine. The machine is a dead thing, right? So the machine, we're going to evolve out of the machine. So don't side with the machine, because then you're on the wrong side of Mother Earth, right? The real immune system that's going to get you is Gaia. So the pandemic is part of Gaia's immune system. So think of it this way. It's all about self and other, right? So even cancer gets cancer. See, they made a big breakthrough. They're saying, like, you know, we're thinking of cancer as the enemy and stuff, but like even cancer has cancer. Even cancer has an enemy. So it gets consumed by an enemy, a sea anemone. So anyway, I hope you realize that these are kind of waves, that you have this wave. So you have the previous wave here that is saying, like, this is self. I'm being overtaken by a non-self, a pandemic. That pandemic itself has pandemics. So the mutants or the variants can also be counterproductive to the program of the previous version of the software. That's why they're saying it's being outcompeted. It's not being outcompeted, it's being outcomputed. So in other words, the waves of the pandemic, the variants are coming as software revision. So it's exactly like the software revision tree for of various versions of software program. So you want to be on the right side of self and other. And you say, well, where all of these things are being generated, basically the root generator where all these are coming out of, the radical root generator, is the base of the tree. And the base of the tree is the earth, it's Mars, it's matter. So the earth computer is where the root is. So if you make sure that you compatible, you're in line, you are part of the mother load, the mother program, then everything else is other and a virus that's eventually going to be consumed.
All right. Yeah. It did,
Yeah.
it looks like the cop can come in many forms, and that's, going through. Yeah, it just sometimes it just it caught me off guard. Yeah, that's what I had to say. I didn't.
That's right. You see, but it's your own fear that's catching you off guard.
Right.
See, the key to dealing with a cop is showing you have no fear. See, if a cop comes to your door, bang, 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 saying like, "Hello," he's like, "Who's there?" It's the police. We just want to see. We're just investigating. There was something unusual around here. We heard there was some shit. There was somebody in the garden. Something like an intruder. There was some other. You go away. I don't want you. What are they going to do? They're going to go around the back of the house. They're going to look for a reason why they're going to come in. They're looking for shit that'll give them an excuse to penetrate the barrier. It's exactly the same as virology. They're trying to get through the capsid. They're trying to get through they're not allowed to enter the cell, your house. So they have to find a reason for penetrating. So they go around the house looking with a flashlight, just like a virus would. They go looking for some reason, and they look, and then they need an excuse, any excuse, and they will see the excuse. The cop will see an excuse. He'll say, "I thought there was loose wiring. They look like snakes to him." You see. So he said, "That's a safety hazard." So he has to say there's some safety hazard, and that gives him reason to come in. And the reason why he's coming in because he smelled fear. Now, if you see, a lawyer will tell you never talk to cops. Well, never talk to cops he's saying that because he wants your business. You must always talk to cops. You must be the first to talk to cops. See, if you talk to cops, if you take the initiative and talk to cops, they smell like shit. You'll smell them. You'll smell them in your nostrils. They smell like truffles. They smell like pigs. But I make a habit of going up. Whatever happens, I go up to, if I see a group of cops and stuff, I immediately go up to them and say, "Hey, what you fucks doing?" And they go like, "Fuck, who the hell are you?" But they're on their guard. They don't like it. And you say like, come on, man, come on, share with me. What are you guys up to, man? You like some shit's going down here. And they say like, Then what often happens is they palm you off on an officer or something, and he comes and explains to you, he's a nice guy. You can see you're a nice guy. You're part of the machine. So he comes to explain to you that the machine is about to eat. It's about to cannibalize some shit. And he's going to come and make an excuse. So he'll often come and take you away off to the side and say, "Yeah, you don't want to get involved here. There's some shit going down." And you get to ask him a lot of questions then. What kind of shit? "Oh, there's some anarchists in this house there." "Oh, shit, not them." So, "Yeah, how shit are they?" "Ooh, big shit." "Really? What do they mean?" You can find out everything you need to know.
Yeah, speaking of cops, I've actually been pulled over by cops quite a bit back when I drove a car. I drove this really old, like worn out Chevy Malibu, like 1979 or 1980, so it was really old and shitty looking. Every time the cop pulled me over, it was bullshit, straight up
Shitty
bullshit.
looking.
But the thing
Because
is,
you were driving a shitty car,
yeah,
then basically he
exactly.
thought there's some shit here, and he came. Yeah.
Yeah. So he pulled me over. Like the first time it happened, he pulled me over. A cop pulled me over, and the 3 pullovers happened in 1 month. I got rid of the car after that, but yeah. So the cop pulled me over, and when I rolled down my window, he shined a flashlight in my eyes and said, "Have you been arrested before?" I'm like, "No, man. I just got off work. Like here's my driver's license and my papers."
Okay, but I'll tell you a better thing to say. Though. Is you should probably say something like, "Okay, shit, I know why you stopped me. It's I'm driving a shit car.
Oh, I
This is
did.
not my
I
car."
did the third time. So I literally got pulled over in the driveway of my house. And I asked the cop, "Hey man, are you profiling this vehicle?" Because I got sick of it at that point. That was the third fucking time that month I got pulled over. And then he kind of flubbed. He kind of you know, I like knocked him off of his kill. Like, he didn't really say anything much after I gave my papers. I asked him, "Are you profiling my vehicle? Like, what's going on?" He just went through, checked my information. He didn't say anything after that, and he said, "You have a good night," and then he just sped off. Yeah,
Yeah,
so
because you edited out of your movie. You edited him out of the movie by confronting the fear. So okay. So now a better thing to say in those kind of things is to say, you know, like, and it better be true. By the way, you want to obey the law because then you can get away with murder.
Oh yeah, yeah. Every time they pulled me over, there was no reason for it. They were literally like, I was always right on the speed limit. I always used my turn signal. Like, I obeyed the law to
No,
like,
yeah. But did you get away with murder?
like, what do you mean? By getting away
Well, there's the point.
from
What's the point of obeying the law if it doesn't allow you to get away with murder?
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm getting away from murder in other ways. Like, I'm been.
Shush, shush. Listen, half the people on these calls are fucking truffle pigs.
Yeah.
Okay, so anyway, so if you really lose faith in yourself, you can't really lose because they're going to drive you towards psychosis, right? If you wind up in a prison in somewhere in America or something, you'll get your psychosis. It's just what will happen to you then is you're going to go through what you're going to go through anyway. It's just more intense. So it's, you know, in essence, they're driving you to the bottom of the class. The program is driving you to the bottom of the class, and it just means you have to work harder. It's, you know, if you went to prison, you would just have things in stark relief. It's just dialing up the volume on the lessons, right? There's nothing different between prison or Jeff Bezos's company. It's just Jeff Bezos's company is more, well, it's more of a dicky place to be. So it's more of a set up.
Yeah, the
You still
prison.
get it in the ass. Either way, you're going to get it in the ass. But you know, it's a set up, and so you know. But anyway, that's that. So but also this morning, I think I'm getting close to paying my dues to Mike's question. But this morning, I told you ways to get around the cop. So one of them is to look like the machine, look like an integral part of the machine. The other one is, you know, I was talking in terms of the 5 elements and info energy, and so you can, you know, you can use a spell on him, like the dollar bill's a spell. And I said, you know, the reason why they don't want you giving money to cops is because that spell is for you. They don't want that spell returned to them. They don't want their spell used on their attack dogs. So that's why it's illegal. But like the attack dog, Jesus, he wants steak as much as you do. So yeah, I mean, I'm talking pretty gross for the back of the class. This is the peanut gallery I'm talking to here. You enough information that you can stay in the front of the class and on the razor's edge. But you want the police. You want a bit of heat. You know, why get up in the morning if the police are not after you? And don't get ahead of yourself because it gets chilly. But anyway, I think I've given enough to keep you out of the lower form classes.
Right. Yeah, I think yeah, it's just, you know, part of life is like all the challenge.
One more. Sorry to interrupt you, but
Go
I
ahead.
just suddenly had the thought come out. Is one thing I wanted to tell you was about looking like the machine. So the machine works against you. I tried to post this thing with Dr. Campbell. He's finally realizing that this is all in our minds. This is the Salem witch trial. This pandemic is, I mean, there's a real virus, but it comes from us inside. So he's coming to the conclusion that, oh, this could be used by the wrong side. It's really dynamite stuff. And I couldn't post it. Whatever I do, I couldn't post it because it was a direct attack on the machine. I tried everything. So Reddit. I tried all my little tricks for getting around this, and then eventually what I got to work was I just took a snapshot of it and basically posted the snapshot. Then it was in the wrong format for the machine to parse. And then I just managed to post it. But from that, you can see why you can't actually take a picture of Woo. Woo is you getting away with fucking with the machine. And like, it's very hard. This means I'm getting ahead of myself. I'm shooting my mouth. Okay, enough coughing. Okay, so then I'll leave it at that. That you go back and have a look at Reddit there and that post by Campbell, and then go and have a look at it, and you'll go and see, and you'll see the content of it, and you'll see Rona, yeah. So it's basically where they're looking and they're saying lockdowns were useless. So basically he's saying, oh well, you know, the story's unraveling. The program is coming apart. The machine's program to keep us in lockdown is coming apart. The reason is we're getting bolder. We're starting to live with our fear. We're starting to overcome our fear. And so what that is literally doing is changing the statistics. And so the statistics tricks, right? The hex is coming off. The magic is wearing out. And so there are consequences now, because the machine itself is coming back with statistics that are saying that lockdowns were bullshit. Bullshit, meaning from the Moloch, shit. And so, yeah, this has all been bullocks, bollocks, and bullshit, and bullying. And so the bull is being exposed. And so now I try and expose the bull. Man, the machine fights back. But here's the clincher that I wanted to tell you. I finally got it posted, and watch this little fucking spinning wheel and undecided. Will you pass the gate? Are you going to let this through to the inner sanctum of Molochs? Are you permitted to the labyrinth? No. Eventually I got it through, and I did it this way. I got what you see posted there. And also I did this. I went into a little meditation, and I went, I love the machine. I visualized the wires. I visualized the light going to the cell phone tower. I visualized all the fiber optics going to Jeff Bezos' underground bomb-proof little server center. I went in there, trying to travel into all the racks, the server space, all the little LEDs in the dark. I went like, yes, I love you. I love the machine. I love this machine. And then, boom, accepted. That's the only way I could do it. That's how you program a machine. With knowledge and love. But I told you how to get through the machine's defenses is you have to say, I'm part of the machine. You must be able to love the machine like that. So if a cop surprises you, if you're hanging upside down from the ceiling somewhere in an attic and suddenly, bang, SWAT team. It's like, very first thing you must do in that kind of thing is love the machine. You must be ready to instantly snap into love the machine. How I learned to love the bomb. How I stopped worrying and learned to love the machine. And you must be able to feel it, not fake it.
Yeah, you mentioned
Set theory versus Horus theory. Yes, exactly.
We had the talk before about it's finer. The game gets finer as you progress, right? And you've got to be able to navigate the razor's edge.
Loving the machine and capturing its semen is what I was talking about there. In effect, as you say, you got to love the machine and let yourself be loved by the machine. You got to be a bit of a whore. You don't get through this as a saint, right? Okay, so forgive yourselves right now You can be as much of a whore you want as long as you do it for mother.
Yeah, it's the power of seduction too. Yeah.
Yeah. You've got to be able to be a hooker like that.
And
And
another
so,
thing about fear, it reminds me of this scene I love from this story. So it's the story about foxes, and the fox is reflecting because he just had cubs and he sees danger everywhere now because now he's a father. And so he thought back on his father because his father got caught in a snare. And he's like, you know, when my father got caught in a snare, he saw snares everywhere he fucking looked. And so he lived in fear the rest of his life. And so after that, describes how the fox grounded himself. He closed his eyes, you know, like opened his nostrils a little bit, and he took the measure of the shadows that reached out for him.
but he created those snares. He created them
Exactly.
in his own mind. He put them in the movie one by one by one. So the
Yeah, and
technique is
then the
how do you edit them out of the movie? And so I've given it to you. You can edit them out with love. Yeah, there's so much more I want to say. Are people getting tired? Do people want to drop off? Because there's something I just thought of to say.
no, I think it's good because when I was younger, I actually used to have constant nightmares about being devoured by predatory animals, especially, you know, wolves. But after my experience in the military, it became more of like a divine presence. Like it's hard to explain. Like I wrote that poem about my muse, and she was after me before, but after what happened to me in the Air Force, she's more of a enigmatic presence, not a vicious one. She's not trying to kill me anymore. She's just sort of there now, watching me. If that makes any sense. It's hard for me to talk about this because, you know,
Yeah,
um,
don't talk about it. Don't talk
yeah.
about it. You're talking with foul breath. So okay. So let me say one thing about the hard-bitten scientist stinging nettle in your left brain, and just say something about how you actually um, how you actually see woo. So if you don't believe in magic and you don't believe it exists because you have all these rational arguments that I tried to shoot down in some posts, so then this is what you have to do to see woo, and this is part of breaking through the barrier to woo and magic. Is it's a practice. You have to be. You see, you're only going to see woo if you're so desperate that your life depends on it. So let me give you this example. When they teach you history in school, they edit out all the bits. They emasculate history. They emasculate the story of science. So, for example, when you learn about Marie Curie, let's say, you just read, oh, Marie Curie, she discovered radium and was recognized for that and blah, 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 blah and stuff. And you go, oh, that'll be nice. I want to be a scientist because, I'm a little goody two shoes and I have a female role model, Marie Curie. Oh, isn't that nice? Okay, now I'm in the science class. What's the first thing they teach you? What's the first thing that we do as scientists? The first thing class is what? It's safety. Yes, safety. So we put on goggles so we don't see anything. We do put on these coats. We put in this objectivity between us and what we're studying. And it's like they're taking the magic out. If you go back to Marie Curie, she's a desperate woman. Desperate. She would give her fucking life for radium. Why? Because she just saw woo. See, radium, she spent years and years like a slave with her husband, just shoveling pitch with a shovel. It's like she didn't do it with safety glasses. She wrecked her health in the pursuit of radium. Why? Because radium was a complete mystery. They knew because of all these guys like um, uh, Kelvin and all these greats of the time, they knew that all about calories and how energy worked in the kind of gross sense. And so it was a mystery how the sun carried on shining. They did calculations based on like coal, and they thought of the sun like a huge lump of coal oxidizing, and how long would it last? And not that long, So they thought it would kind of burn out. They didn't know about radiation until Becquerel and Marie Curie. Becquerel found, because he had had an isotope, also little mystery, because it's a kind of glowing stone. It's kind of glow in the dark stone. And he chucked it in a drawer, which happened to have some photographic plates on it. And then he found out, man alive, whatever this thing is putting out goes through and changes the chemical composition of the silver in the plates. I think it was X-rays, and so basically Röntgen and those guys sorted it out and figured out these are X-rays coming from the. But what I think you must think of Marie Curie, and all of these guys, as they're on a psychonautic journey. They are absolutely at the point of death, just like the astronauts. They are doing something that is extreme. You only do that if you are desperate. So, in other words, Marie Curie is doing this because she wants to know what radium is more than life. If you walked up to her and said, look, I'll tell you what radium is, but it's going to cost you her life, she would take that Mephistophelian bargain just like that. You see, what they hide from you in history is the drama that these bastards went through. They literally, everything's on their line. Their life, their career, everything, their lives. And you see, like, these guys like Faraday, how many times he blew himself up in the studio, if you in a lab. If you look at even guys like Franklin. He's flying a kite in a thunderstorm, trying to find out what electricity is, going with a key like that, and he's trying to see, because electricity is a mystery, and what they're after is the elixir of life. You see, they're in a Johnny Depp style Pirates of the Caribbean movie where they're trying to find, the lodestone, the philosopher's stone, the thing that will keep them alive. And here's this mystery that Marie Curie knows that she's only going to find out is, how does radium carry on radiating light without a source of energy? This is, to them, it's like we've got 0-point energy. This is God in a bottle. And she's in the pursuit of that light, right? She would do anything for that light. They scrubbed that out of history. Nobody's doing science anymore. Nobody's achieving anything because they're not desperate. Nobody's got a question. Now, one of these, diversity hires that go into a lab coat setting and into a lab that has any real desperation. But these are people that are really going to see woo, because they're in that zone where they have given up on life to find the answer. That, like, they've gone too far now, and that they are in this pursuit of eternal life, in effect. So you look at Kamalin Onus, and towards absolute zero, and these things explode and it's stuff. It's steampunk. It's they're doing alchemy with on the edge. Like Newton, he's putting a bodkin in his eye, just a huge fucking stiletto. He's almost giving himself a lobotomy, figuring out. And then they go, now class, today we'll have a look at the prism and how it gets white light and spreads it to the colors of the rainbow. Yes, Johnny, stop laughing. Yes, we all love the rainbow flag. Yeah, and that's a nice way to see a prism, as a rainbow flag. Fuck you! Newton put a fucking bodkin in his eye to try and figure out light and how a rainbow was generated from a raindrop and the parallax and what the mystery of light is. These guys are desperate guys, sell their soul to the devil so they can see magic. Now, there's no magic in science. It's perfunctory. And what do you get out of it? Nothing.
Yeah,
They're not moving. They're not developing. Because they're not sacrificing. They don't even want to. So the magic is running out. They got a little spell from these guys, from the greats of science, because of their psychic journey. They did the psychic journey. They edited all of this and manifested this stuff. They didn't discover science. They manifested it. And so now we're getting to the tail end of that. We're trying to split too much psychic experience over too many dicks in the lab coat. So we're not getting anything out of science. The magic is wearing off. So now the magic comes back to the people. They're starting to realize we can walk up walls. We can, starting to do parkour and stuff. Starting to win back the magic. And you see, when there is literally real magic, the guys that are just doing a trick are just losing faith in themselves. But you see, this is the big transfer now. The big transition is not to a green economy or something. It's not to the same shit but more. It's a transition that's it's to the transition of magic back to the people. And so people like Beckwith and stuff, who's still part of the machine, he can't get it. He goes to Ottawa and he's looking at all these. He says, "What's all this about? All these trucks with freedom? I mean, who's against freedom? Do you think people would be over here saying, like, I'm for oppression? You fucking idiot, Beckwith. Can't you see the government behind you for the guys with the sign? They're not going to put up a sign saying for oppression. They're just going to come out and hit you with a billy club. But Beckwith can't see it because he's part of the parliament. I'm Canadian, and that means I'm part of the parliament, eh? It's like, I'm part of the machine. So, yeah, freedom means we're free because we're the host. Host is free, aren't they? So he's baffled what these people are arguing about. But, of course, the freedom is growing, and they're getting trucks, and now it's starting to be a rebellion. And he's like, I just don't get it. He's never going to get it because he's the host cell. And these new guys are basically the pathogenic version. So they're the other. But from the other side, the truckers are us. They're Mother Earth. They are the fundamental program. And the more radical program, more program closer to the root, to the operating system, which is Mother Earth. And so to them, Trudeau and all these other bastards and Beckwith are all part of the enemy. They're part of the attack vectors. So they're being attacked as the other. That have, it's revenge from Mother Earth. You see.
Yeah, it's like take back the fat in your hide from the machine, and also take back the magic too.
Well, they're redirecting the info energy. So if this program is done right, then you'll wire it up as the post that I said on like Info Energy 202. And I'll explain to you how you wire up the machine, how the machine's wired up, so it's how you wire up a counter machine. But all of this is transformation to the Flipping. You better pick the right side, right? Because if you're on Trudeau's side and you think Trudeau is on the right side of history, means he's on the right side of his story, he's on the right side of the program. And you say, like, what is the program? Well, if it's going on a rocket on a big dick like Bezos and Musk, if it's journey to the stars through tech, well, then you better be on that side. But if you're wrong, entropy is going to get you, man. The more fundamental program is the mother program. It's the operating system. So, yeah, it's easy to fuck with the leaves and the new revisions in the code, but at the code at the heart, don't want to fuck with that. So, stick with what you think is the program for the heart. And so that's the fundamental program. You see, we got a little bit stupid since the Egyptians. You see, the Egyptians had no problem with that. They thought they knew the fundamental of the program's the heart, so that they kept the pharaoh's heart in a jar, because that was, the jar represents the womb and the uterus. So they kept to get the pharaoh reborn, they put his heart, which is the essence of him, in the crucible, which is kista or the magic basket or the womb-shaped object, and then they think that's the way he's going to reincarnate, and then they just get an ice pick, stick it up his nose, pull his brain out. They're like fucking useless piece of jelly. Now we come along, left brain. That's the alien cortex you threw out there, you bastards. And it's like heart. That's just for pumping blood. Like, is it? Oh. To your left brain, heart's just for pumping blood. But you see how visceral an Egyptian is. An Egyptian is just like Marie Curie. Basically, Marie Curie, you say like, this might be the elixir of life, radium, the light. You might find the source of everything, the source of matter. She was right, by the way. And then you say that to her. Her heart's pounding. How often does a scientist's heart pound today? I'll tell you who scientists pound today. They pound us in the fucking ass. I can't even go to a fucking restaurant. That's the only thing that pounds, is my ass from their fucking lab coats and their fucking Clockwork Orange.
Yeah, speaking of the heart, it made me think of the hero's journey, like the part in the story where the hero's defeated and he gets the gift of the goddess. I think that's the heart. I realize what the heart is at that moment.
Well, whatever makes your heart race, that's where your life is. So do shit that makes your heart race. You stay on the... See, if you feel you don't have enough energy and you're feeling depressed and stuff like that, because you have no heart. So, I must be like, join Extinction Rebellion and talk about love. No! You just fucking violated Desiderata rule number whatever, I can't remember. But you don't talk about love. That's bad breath. Talking that way, sentimentality. Yeah, the machine doesn't know how to love. The machine talks love. That's why these guys stand out of the school where these people come back from, or the kids come back from these school shootings, and they're cops. The very fucking enemy is standing out and say, you are loved. They don't say, we love you, because it's not we. It's you are loved. Who are you loved by? Well, by your mother, by the people, not by the cops. So they say they're literally telling the truth by holding up a sign. But I mean, who holds up a sign to tell you? Do you go in the morning? I used to do that to my kids. Morning, kids. I have a message for you. You are loved. All right, fuck off to school. No, because I love my kids. They make my heart race. So find out what makes your heart race. And doing shit makes your heart race. So if you're depressed and stuff, then fire up the old ticker. Why? Do some shit.
That's how you feel alive.
That's how
Yeah.
That's how you stay alive.
That's how you feel alive. Yeah.
If you do some shit, you'll stay on the razor's edge. You'll feel some heat behind you. And if you get too fucking cocky, if you get a bit too much like McAfee, you'll get ahead of yourself, and then I'll put you in a cold morgue. But you want to be somewhere between the, frozen on the slab and feeling the heat. You want to be between those two. Otherwise, you're not alive.
Be formless, be shapeless like water.
Well, that's part of the alchemy, right? We just did that alchemy. So,
yeah, exactly.
So this is Shakti, right? So if you get too hot, use love, the water, female aspect. So Shiva is the fire. This is Shakti. There we cool down. Actually, I never told you about Vivekananda and the thing that I said he did. He actually said, get a bowl of water, cold water, and snort it to cool down your brain. Because all of this stuff, the stuff that I'm giving you, is cooking your noodle. It's heating up your brain. So he's saying to cool down, if you haven't got something convenient like the Himalayas next to you that you can cool your noodle off, what you can do is just get cold water and snort it. But I tried it, and it works, but I almost freaking drowned, so I don't do that anymore. But anyway, it's interesting, you know, talking about the desperation. So like Vivekananda is talking about desperate psychonauts that would do anything to make to go after the Holy Grail, enlightenment. So they'll do anything for the light. And so if you're that type, you will snort water up your nose to make sure I need to cook my brain and not overheat it. So you do those things so you can cook it. But this is the way you cook. Eupsychosis is the process. Put it in the crucible, and out comes what? The egregore, or the ego gourd, the bull gourd. You see, if you look in the Shelby Cave, you can see the bull there has all its guts out. It's all being gored. And then you can see Orion, the hunter, has no head. So it's Lacey is saying, you've lost your head, the bull's been gored. The egregore is the ego gourd. And the ultimate ego gourd is the mind. Okay. These lessons are too hard for me. They're on tape. Just go back and watch them like it's a Clockwork Orange.
Yeah, I have to listen to them a few times too sometimes. Yeah. Yeah, it takes a lot of thinking and reflecting sometimes.
That thinking and reflecting is cooking your noodle. But you see, you have to keep up the heat. You don't want to go off the boil or something. It's basically, this is the alchemical process. So this is how you make the philosopher stone, or you make the philosopher stoned. And this is, you don't want to smoke weed, because weed comes from a supplier. You don't want any intermediaries, right? You want to do your own alchemy. Don't take alchemy from a chemist. Never go to a chemist. You don't want to do They're an apothecary. They're killing you. They're not curing you.
Okay, come in. Go.
All right, we should end. Okay, well, I'll pretend that there are no other questions, and I feel like I did justice to the agenda. So it's like, okay, let's permit me to bow out on this note of silence and Om Paramatmani Namah. All right. Keep the progress up. Keep a head of steam, baby. You've got to keep up a head of steam, because otherwise we're not going to make it. We have to jump the canyon. We have to go through the singularity, the flippening, and don't let the boiler die. Don't let the fire die. Keep stoked up. Keep doing shit. Keep shoveling shit into the boiler so you can keep up a head of steam and cook that noodle. Otherwise, see you during the week on the Reddit and next Sunday. Actually, on Tuesday, I've got an interview with the Farm podcast, Recluse, and so yeah, I wanted to ask him more about Wu and what he's heard, and just validate some of the things that I told you about Wu, because I think he's more up to date on pretty much where the state is. So yeah, I'll post something so you can join that. But if you want to go down the Skinwalker, yeah, that's where I can address Skinwalker Ranch. I'll do that during the week through him, because really I only know Skinwalker Ranch stuff through some Maybe through Hank, but also through some different channels through Bigelow, Bob Bigelow. Yeah. A circuitous route to Bob Bigelow. But there you see, Bob Bigelow is a guy who's like Marie Curie, desperados. Only desperados get the gold, man. And he's one of them, so that's why. But yeah, I feel I must tell you more about why you can't really film Wu. But certainly the guys on Skinwalker Ranch and the Bigelow teams and that, they saw the weirdest shit. And you will. And I kind of try to encourage encourage people to just go and try some creepy Wu stuff. Go out into a churchyard, meditate on a maybe that's a little advanced. But yeah. I'll tell you how to do an op. Of course, it's an op on yourself, but you will see Wu. And I challenge you, if you've got to be a desperado scientist and take a camera, and I'll lead you through. I'll tell you first what I think you're going to see. You'll see a variation of this. It's a ritual almost. It's a ritual you're doing on yourself. And I'll tell you in advance, you know what you're looking at when you see it, just like a shaman. But then, yeah, you must go and, if you don't just sit on your high horse saying like, no, it's not scientific. It's like, okay, I'll show you. But you're going to have to sit in a churchyard on an auspicious night, and it's a hell of a thing to get right. But just getting there and not being arrested is pretty fucking good going. But, you know, that you go through what I tell you, you will be a changed person. And also what you'll find rather interesting is just how many people out there are doing this shit.
Oh, good, because I was going to ask if I have to go alone. But I guess I'll find people out there. I don't have to worry about being alone.
You got to do this on yourself. Right?
Oh, by
so
myself.
That's another thing. You will only see Wu on your own. You can see Wu with other people, but you're not there.
Okay.
You must do a solo journey. You see, for starters, what's going to happen is like Robert Anton Wilson said, you know, like you have any four guys sitting down for a conspiracy, three of them are going to be cops. And so it's the same, you know, if you have three people, you might think, oh, I'll get a couple of buddies and do this. They're going to be cops. You think, no, they're not cops. They're my best friend. Watch them. Soon as shit starts to go down, they'll go, oh, I'm not doing this. Oh, we love it. And they'll shut down the whole op. You'll never be able, you'll struggle to do this with the cop in your head, let alone two other cops.
Yeah, you know, speaking of the cop,
you can do it with, just one moment, you can do it with three people, but you have to be able to beat the cops. Those other two are cops. So you're only ready to do it with three people when you can actually basically out-muscle two cops. Okay, so don't go with friends. It's too many dicks on the dance floor. You got to go alone because there's only one dick on the dance floor. That dick on the dance floor sees Wu and unlocks the magic. Oh, then you're off to the races. Then you can actually use cops to make Wu. Then you're dangerous. But you have to go all out, desperate, like your life depends on it, because it does. Now, you have to pay everything. You have to forfeit your life to do this. Put your life on the line, absolutely. You might lose your life doing this. And so, here's the thing. All I can say is the rewards are extraordinary. See, doing these things and pursuing these things, the thing that utterly baffles me is how you can get so much reward for just putting everything on the line. And we better end on that.
Well, before we go, there is one thing I wanted to say is when I was working on meditating on the Extinctionati symbol, I did try to go to the park at midnight, and this random white car drove up by me. I shit you not. And this is just a random citizen, you know.
Men in black, men in black, men in black.
Yeah,
Goodbye,
yeah.
goodbye, goodbye.
I still went to the park, don't worry.
I'm too much of a scaredy cat to go out at night. Maybe someday.
I'm always alone at night. I'm not scared, but I live in the wild, so I'm used to it. So.
Yeah, it was scary. I was scared the whole time, but I still went. I don't want to say what I saw though, because, you know, I want other people to go try these things.
I think Lord
And
Hugh
yeah,
abandoned,
yes, he was,
took off.
yeah, he heard Men in Black, so he ran. So I think Mike might want to might stop the recording now because
All right. Yeah, just fun. Okay.